And now it's time for Who's Views with JT and the Whotastic panel.
Here we are then. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Who's Views. How are you? Hope you are well. And I'm here with Paul. Hiya, Paul.
Hello there.
Oh, madam, what is that you've got there?
It's my Sylvester McCoy 7th Doctor umbrella. I can do all these kind of gags and everything. That's great.
Does that remind you of 1989?
It does, very much so, because this was the last time we saw this in 89, was this fantastically pretentious umbrella. Good stuff.
Yeah. Past me is very glad that we didn't see it ever again. Past.
Yes, I think some of us are, yeah.
I think we were all question marked out by this particular point.
I think we were. And so was Sylvester McCoy, I believe, as well. I think, yeah.
Yes, so we know. Well, anyway, listen, we've started already. Nice to see you all, Who viewers. Nice to see you. Nice. And thank you for joining us for this, which is our first episode in a semi-regular series about the wilderness years. So this is our preempt, because of course Paul and I are now taking you right back to 1989, which is the eve of the wilderness years. But it wouldn't be right doing a wilderness years series, Paul, without looking at 1989, would it?
Of course not. That's where it all started.
Yeah.
If you're pardon the pun. Yeah.
Yes, you can. This is also, in a sense, the second prequel to our wilderness years series, because we also looked at 1985. When we looked at the 40th anniversary of the 1985 cancellation, and it was a cancellation by Mr. Michael Grade, which you will all know about that.
Yeah.
And
I love that fact. It got cancelled. He buggered off to go skiing just to avoid the press. That was great. Yeah.
We talked all about that. That's in our playlist. Yeah. We've got brand new playlist on our channel now, the Wilderness Years, and this is where this is going to go. We have got lots of plans about this. We're going to be celebrating, and yes, celebrating is the word I'm going to use. We're going to celebrate 15 years of the show off air, because as far as I'm concerned, it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and I had a hell of a time from what I can remember. It was really, really good. But we're going to be looking at all sorts of stuff as part of this series. So thank you for coming and joining us. John Roberts getting in there with boo, Michael Grade. He certainly set the tone, because, of course, Doctor Who staggered on for 4 years after that. And Paul, do you remember by this point in 1989, we were all very much a case of every year, for the first time in Doctor Who's history, as fans, we were all going, is it coming back the year after?
Yeah, and that was quite scary, because you probably remember all the years watching it prior to the cancellation. Definitely, it had an announcement saying it would be back next year, or back next spring, or back next winter, autumn, whatever, you know. And then in the meantime, you go to the exhibition to curb your desires for Doctor Who. Go to the exhibition in between times, but then you didn't get that round about this time, did you? You had to keep thinking: is it coming back? Is it not coming back? Is it cancelled? Kind of thing. It was horrible.
That's right. Yeah. Much like now, actually, everybody. Except this time, as Paul and I were just saying in the green room before we came on, and we've said it before on headlines, it's the other way around, Who viewers, isn't it? The majority of fandom don't want the show, but the BBC seems to do.
Yeah.
But back here in 1989, we as fans wanted the show to continue, but the BBC just were not interested. They hated it. They absolutely hated it. Before we start, let's go and say hello to everybody in the chat, Paul, shall we? We've got our very own Kirsty saying, hello, everyone, and new peeps coming in. Gather round, kids. Yes, that's right, because your Uncle Paul and I have got a story for you.
Yeah. This is a history lesson for the young'uns in the audience. Yeah.
Yes, and we won't be changing the facts. No, we won't be. We've got Denny Ring here. Hello, nice to see you, Denny Ring. That's hi, everyone. Hello to you. I like that little star there. Darren Reed is saying, watch out, Paul. There's a Humphrey about. Do you remember that?
What do you think I am? For goodness sake.
Listen, I remember that one. So
do I. Yeah, I'm just teasing.
Yeah. Should we
explain I'm ancient.
It?
Yeah, like Ian, I'm ancient. Yeah.
It's from an advert, for those of you who won't remember. It's from an advert that was here in the UK. And Humphrey was, he had this sort of big stripy stick, candy cane type stick, and he would pull off the, he would drag off the act on the advert, wouldn't he? Because it was for milk or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It's McCoy uses it quite a lot in Doctor Who, which is quite funny. He loves his props. And that was, if you imagine that, a comedian been on for too long. There must have been had one for Ken Dodd, surely, to get him off at some point.
I don't think they did, you know.
He probably didn't. No, yeah.
He's
yeah.
still there now if he had his way, wouldn't he? Honestly,
Definitely, yeah.
God
yeah.
love him. It's time for tea. Ace says Alphabet Cat. So it is. It absolutely is. What else we got here? Lots of you here. Yeah, Stephen Braddock is saying, welcome to the 80s. Yeah, 1989, it says. And John Pope, good evening from a cold and wet London. Well, hello to you, John. Hope you're well. Yeah. And there, I would like a brolly like that. I'm very tempted, says Johnny the Cabbage to you, Paul.
Well, you can get them on a certain website called Amazon. Other websites are available. Okay,
yeah.
so
you might even like to check the Who Shop and Galaxy 4 as well.
Yeah,
see if they've got it. They were very much around in 1989, the same as us, with some other shops that have long gone now, by the way. But they were the same with us, going, is it coming back? Is it coming back? There you go. Paul Schlefter is with us. Hello, Paul. I was 8 in 1989. Oh, I had very vague memories of watching the Sylvester McCoy episodes. 8. Bless you. Just the right age to be getting into Doctor Who, though, as well.
Yeah. And it was just getting good and they pulled it off, which is terrible. Yeah.
Exactly. Stephen Braddock's saying that. And that lovely picture of Sylvester that he's done there. Thank you for that, Steve. There was so much left to give in 89. Season 26 was excellent, and we were robbed of 27. Yeah. Matt the Silence is saying to us, hello, mate. Hope you're all right. Got your email. Michael Grade and Jonathan Powell, or Chris Chibnall and RTD. Yeah. Farsight is with us saying season 26 rocks.
Yeah.
I agree. I absolutely agree. Legion of James, my denial was real in 89. I was just not having it. That it wasn't coming back. How wrong was I? There was a lot of that going on, though.
Yeah.
Wasn't there?
I was still stunned at this point from 85. I'm sure you were as well. I was like, come on, what's going on? Can we get some more concrete news that's happening, you know?
Yeah.
And I liked McCoy from the start. I really did. And I really wish he had a fourth season. In fact, I wish Colin had a third season, to be honest. But it never happened, you know?
No, it never happened. Sheila B in the Devotions is saying that she turned 28 in 1989. Oh, very good. Very good. And we've got John Mason with us. I'd given up on Doctor Who by this point. I was embarrassed by the McCoy years. I remember you saying that, John, at one of our shows, actually. I do remember that. Evening All says Woodhouse 122. Hello. Kirsty's reminding us that she didn't exist in 1989. Well, that's just...
Get to your room. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Yeah.
Great to see you all. Craig Dunlop is with us. Cara, the Tolkien nerd, is with us. And PTA is with us with a super chat here. I never forgave Craig for cancelling the tripods as well. He cancelled so many things, didn't he? Because he classed everything as an old show.
Well, he's on record saying he hated sci-fi, isn't he? So the tripods seems a bit bizarre though, because they'd already filmed the first two series or the first two books, and as a trilogy. Why did you not finish it? That's really stupid, you know?
Yeah. Benign Crinoid, Proper Who ended with a contender for the best run of 3 stories ever. Season 26 is actually very strong, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah.
And we've got John Roberts with us. Michael Grade was the anti-Lou Grade. Considering the family connection, I get what you're saying there, because Lou Grade would actually invest time and money and energy into all these fantasies and sci-fis and things that were off kilt, if you like. And then Michael Grade comes along and says, no, I don't like anything like that.
You know, Lou Grade was a great supporter of Anderson stuff, wasn't he? Massively.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. Hello, Woodhouse. What are you saying to us? I hate to admit it, but by 1989, I was more into Red Dwarf than Doctor Who, even though I was still buying the VHS releases and getting Doctor Who magazine.
Weren't we all? Yes.
No, I wasn't really. I didn't really get into Red Dwarf. No,
I meant the Doctor Who VHSs and the magazine. I'm still buying that. Yeah. I've never been a fan of Red Dwarf. I'm a bit of a Philistine on that score. Yeah.
Jodie, that comes on our shows every now and then. Everybody, she's a massive Red Dwarf fan as well. She's got all the VHS and she's got the DVDs and probably getting the Blu-ray at some point now, because I believe it's out on Blu-ray as well. What's this? Denny Ringus is saying to us, I was in my teens when I was reading the Doctor Who Virgin novels. Oh, good Lord, that's lovely. And we've got a super chat here from Digby. Hi, Digby, mate. How are you? We were robbed of a great couple of seasons, heartbroken that just as the show was getting its act together, it was snatched away. Yeah. Now, that was a feeling that I think, Paul, a lot of us felt in 1989 into 1990. But 1989 was, I mean, I seem to remember at this point, it had now become, as I said there, it had become usual at this point. Is it coming back? Is it coming back? And for all you new viewers out there, you young whiskerless youths, you have to remember this was pre the internet, pre-mobile phones, pre-computers basically as well. We didn't really have laptops and we didn't have any of that unless you were mega rich.
Can I just say there was no dinosaurs around at that time though, just to mention that now, okay, but in case people are wondering,
but there was nothing there at all. You know, and how we got our information back then was either letters from the BBC itself, from the Doctor Who production office, God love it. They were kept busy, those girls in there, weren't they? They were kept busy. They got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of letters a week.
And phone calls as well. I did it a few times myself.
Yeah. I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying anything. But they did. And also it was going to local groups as well. There were lots of local groups around the country and meeting people and hearing things. Farsight saying to us for a super chat. Hello, Farsight. How are you? New Adventures of New Who. I know what I prefer. Oh, New Adventures or the New Who. I know what I prefer. I'm going to be coming to the New Adventures a little bit because 1989 is where they get that little green light. You'll be delighted to know, Farsight, we've got an entire show coming up as part of our Wilderness Years series all about the New Adventures. And Mark Greaves says, well, thank you for your super chat, mate. Hi, JT and Paul. Hello.
Hello.
Finally, a year when it was sci-fi, nothing else, no messages, no gender crap, just British science fiction. I miss those days, don't we all?
Yeah, we do.
Don't we all? Were any of you watching earlier on today, though? You and Eden are now showing Pyramids of Mars and Genesis of the Daleks, of course. And it's just wonderful to sit down and watch it on the telly without having to get up and go and get a Blu-ray or a DVD, isn't it? And just be entertained. And this is what I understand that some people had left, like some of our chat there, had left Doctor Who at this point. And I understand that. I don't blame them because the BBC really mucked it up from 86 onwards. Let's face it.
Well, I had a lot of fan friends who, same age as me, hated this era. Right. I hated a lot of the JNT stuff, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Even season 24, there are bits you can pick what I really like. And McCoy from the start, I loved. I prefer his comic take than his really serious take because it doesn't quite work for me. But it's kind of, I loved it, but friends of mine really weren't that keen at all, and they didn't like Colin Baker much either and stuff like that. So it's such a shame, you know?
Yeah, and we still know people, our very own George.
Yeah.
He left the show after Tom Baker left, didn't he? He couldn't get into the Davison era at all and didn't like the JNT era, so he sort of dabbled. I've got other friends as well saying that, you know, just dabbled a bit. But the fact is, for those of us that were still there, by the time you got to 1989, well, I remember being aware in 1989, Paul, Doctor Who was in a bit of a mess. And even though as a fan, I'm thinking, I really enjoyed season 25. For me, it was a lot stronger than 24.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, is 20 at the beginning of 1989? You knew it was coming back, but you didn't know how it was going to come back or whatever. But there was always, wasn't there, the Who viewers at the time? There was this feeling of it could go at any time.
Yeah,
and it did. Eventually, it did. And that's what we're going to look at now. Because yes, as I've said to you all in the chat, and those of you that were there, let's share your memories in the chat. Nice to see you all. For those of you that weren't there, let us know what you think of all this. Because as I said, this is pre-internet. This is pre-mobile phone. Everything was done by what we now call snail mail, which was basically the old-fashioned Royal Mail post. You put a letter in. I used to write.
And now it's called double snail mail, isn't it? Because it's so slow, allegedly. Yes.
But they were happy days. I was a great pen pal looking back because you would always write letters to your other Doctor Who friends, and they'd come back. And you get a letter a week or 2 weeks after you'd sent them, or something like, have you heard this? And by that point, of course, it was weeks out of date or months out of date what you'd heard. But the circle was there around the local groups. But I have to say, everybody, that the majority of our information came from either the Doctor Who Production Office, the Doctor Who Appreciation Society, if you were a member of the Doctor Who Appreciation Society in 1989, or, of course, Doctor Who Magazine, which actually in 1989 celebrated its 10th anniversary. Yes, it was just a baby considering where it is now. These are the covers for the magazine in that year. And as you can see, they also celebrated their 150th edition in 1989. This is so innocent now, Paul, isn't it? Looking at this.
It really is. And as you're kind of alluding to with this, we had the Gallifreyan Guardian, which was great for news. But they give you little snippets, little tiny snippets. That was it. Little teases, which is, you know what I mean? And they keep teasing you for weeks and months on end, didn't they? The thing about this is that this really thrived during the Wilderness Years, didn't it? The magazine, particularly. It's not doing so well now, but it really thrived then. It was something for us to go to, which we loved, to have something Doctor Who in our lives we didn't have on TV.
Absolutely. And if you can look at those prices as well, everybody there, it was £1.25 and it rose to £1.50 towards the end of the year. Look at that. Every month. Paul mentioned the Gallifrey Guardian there, everybody. So I tell you what, let's look at February 1989 in Doctor Who Monthly. This is the Gallifrey Guardian, and I'm going to be looking at that page there. As you can see here, it says season 26 gets the go-ahead. The BBC have announced the go-ahead for season 26 of Doctor Who in November, almost a year before it will be screened in Britain. The early announcement is unusual and reflects the growing confidence in the series shown by the corporation after the success of season 25, and no doubt helped along by the enormous press interest in the silver anniversary from both local and national papers. The audience appreciation figures, do we all remember those from the old days? Because we don't get them today. For the season opener, Remembrance of the Daleks came in at 68, 69, 70, and 72 for episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4, respectively. All very good figures. Season 26 has a budget of 1.6 million.
Well, that's one episode of a shooty episode, isn't it?
Oh, it could jolly well be, I tell you, it could be. So, I mean, this was February, and as you'll know, as a Doctor Who, we all bought Doctor Who magazine at one point, that was out in the January, right? So that's where this. So I was quite excited at this point, thinking, oh, great, we're getting season 26, it's going ahead. But I love the way that Doctor Who magazine, even then, was really following a party line, isn't it? Because it says there, it shows a growing confidence. Little did we know. Let's just look at one of those other stories there as well. As John stays on from the same issue of Gallifrey Guardian, one surprise for the lineup of the next season is the return of John Nathan Turner as the producer, after he previously announced that he would be moving on in Doctor Who magazine issue 137 and interview issue 140. John had no comment to make about his staying on. Andrew Cartmel will be continuing as script editor, with Ian Briggs and Brendan Aronovich returning as writers. Plus, there will be two new writers unnamed at the time of going to press. The provisional title of Ben Aronovich's new story is Storm over Avalion, and Ian's story is tentatively titled Wolf Time. Happy times. Getting those titles. Those titles are famous for a certain generation, aren't they, Paul?
Oh, yeah.
Storm over Avalion. You immediately think Robin of Sherwood. Well, I did. I was thinking, oh, God, they're going to do a Robin of Sherwood. Wrong.
You were close. It was King Arthur, but you were close.
It was King Arthur. Yeah. It was. I'm just going to check, see what you're all saying in the chat. Stephen O'Neill. Hi, Stephen. Remember when Doctor Who Weekly was launched on the 17th of October, 79? It was over 12 pence. It was. Yeah. And here we are in 1989, and it's 10 years. And those 10 years just seem to fly by. You remember? It was just incredible. And Graham is saying Storm over Avalion is a great title. Yeah, I think they should have kept it rather than turning it into Battlefield.
Yeah. I think it's a better, it's more exciting title, I think, definitely. Yeah.
1.6 million, says Darren Reed, allowing for inflation, would still be better value for money than the last two seasons. Well, you'll know down from our ratings reviews from Bedouia, Battlefield is no longer down at the bottom there. Different times as well. And Funky is saying to us, JNT was persuaded to stay again.
Yeah.
And is that look at that picture, the avatar there. That is from with Neil and I on the Adventures in Time and Space set, isn't it? That's quite funny. I like that.
Is a Richard E. Grant there? Yeah, I love that space. Yeah. I'm surprised he didn't do that, to be honest. Maybe next year. Yeah.
Russ Morgan's joined us. Hello, Russ. And I have a lot of fondness for the JNT years, says John Roberts. Well, good. That's great. Yeah, absolutely. But that was the situation when it came to Doctor Who magazine there. Rory saying to us, JNT told he was not getting his soap and forced to stay on Doctor Who when Cartmel would have been a great Producer. Yeah. He was adamant, though, John Nathan Turner. He had. I remember those 2 editions of Doctor Who magazine there, as a lot of you will, where he said, "I'm not staying. I'm not doing 26. I am going." But we now know, of course, why he was there. You know, because John for years would say, if he'd gone then, they would have finished the show early, because of course, as Peter Krajina has said in the interviews, Paul, he couldn't see anybody else that wanted to do Doctor Who, and nobody came forward to do Doctor Who.
I think we can be grateful for JNT for what he did for Doctor Who, because when he took over in 1980, it was a huge shift of how it was made and looked much glossier, etc. And it's lucky to have survived to 89, but I think that's due massively in part to JNT, to be honest. Not just staying on, but some of the things he did. He admits he had made some mistakes, like Colin's coat and stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. But he did a lot of good things as well, and he never gets enough credit, I don't think, to be honest. But he stayed on to keep it going, quite rightly. But he really wanted to leave to get another line on his CV, as he keeps saying, didn't he? He's got one line, producer Doctor Who, but not produced anything else. And he really wanted to go and do other things. I did watch the Endgame documentary on Survival as a bit of research, like I really needed, of course. Was that he was offered Bergerac, wasn't he? Apparently, and he said something along the lines of, "Well, I'll remove John Nettles and I'll move it from Jersey to somewhere else," which is wonderfully stubborn with JNT, which is lovely. Yeah.
He regretted that decision years later. When I was chatting to him, and I'm talking years later, when must have been around the time after the TV movie with McGann, and by the time I got to talk to him in Brighton, John Nathan Turner was a man with a lot of regret. He really was. When it came to Doctor Who, he had a lot of regret, and that was one thing that he did regret. He said that he was stupid not to take Bergerac, and he would have taken Andrew Cartmel with him.
Yeah,
and he said, he just implied that he was not just stupid but very arrogant to be given another show from the BBC, and it was a massive hit, Bergerac.
Yeah,
I just never understood why he just didn't take it and run. But the BBC would have found somebody at that point to take over from him.
Yeah. I remember at the time, and I don't know if it'll come out later on in the stream, but it Paul Stone was a potential producer after JNT, but no one wanted to take it at all because it felt like a poisoned chalice, and no one. The BBC hated this. We talked about this, like we said, about the BBC hated Doctor Who then and want to cancel it. Now we hate it. And they want to keep it going, which is complete madness and complete turnaround to how we felt at the time, because we desperately wanted to continue. Which is such a shame,
Yeah. As Mark Walker said to us in the chat there, I miss the optimism of the Wilderness years. We were so naive. The brilliant thing about the Wilderness years, for those of you who weren't there, is you had a beginning and an end. 1963 is where it began, and 1989 is where it eventually finished. And you had beginning, a middle, and an end. You had 7 doctors. You had 26 years of time and space travel. Monsters, from the Daleks and the Cybermen to the Sontarans to the Zarbi. You had all these sorts of things, And so we didn't fall out about it as much because there was nothing new on the television to make us fall out. There was nobody coming along retconning what we all loved. There was nobody trying to be clever. There was nobody pushing agendas into it. Not like today, which has divided fandom completely. And it'll never be, in my estimation, Who viewers, it will never get back to what we knew it as fans. It will never be whole again. Because you're always going to have people saying, "Oh, I love the Whittaker era," "Oh, I hate the Whittaker era," "Oh, I love the Gatwa era," "Oh, I hate the Gatwa era." And that's going to be tension forever, because it's also been, handed now with a side dish of ist, ot, phobe with it. So it's nonsense. And the whole load of new fans growing into that thinking, well, if you don't like this, you are an istophobe or not, which is just not true.
Yeah.
And that's sad. We didn't have any of this, because when you got together from 1989 onwards, all you had was those 26 years.
And when you had a disagreement with a fan, you weren't accused of being a phobic, whatever, or an ist or whatever. You were you just agreed to disagree about the fact you didn't like Colin Baker or you preferred Tom Baker or whatever. You know what I mean? That was and that was fine. That's when we're sensible,
Absolutely. How times change in our little country. Dalek Shalom, hello to you. A talented actor can ride through weaker stories and lift them. I don't think McCoy was in that mold, whereas Colin is a joy to watch regardless. Now, see, this is the sort of thing I mean. This is what we'd always talk about. Who was better, McCoy or Baker? Colin Baker, you know. And you would agree to disagree, or you'd agree, or there were bits where you'd say, actually, I know what you mean about that, but I still like this. It was nice. Yeah. It was nice conversations. Johnny the Cabbage is saying Bergerac was just shoestring on an island after Trevor Eve left. Yeah, okay, it was.
Yeah.
Absolutely was. And they think we didn't notice.
Yeah, Shoestring was a great show. I wish Trevor Eve had stayed, because I preferred that to Bergerac, to be honest. It's a better show. Yeah.
It didn't do him any. I mean, he did one series, didn't he?
I think it was 2. I think he did. Yeah.
It didn't do him any harm, though, did he? Because he went into Shakespeare and theatre and films and all this. He did all right out of it.
I think he feels about Shoestring the same way that Martin Shaw feels about The Professionals, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Same kind of idea. Don't mention it.
Cara. Corey the Tolkien nerd. Oh, I loved Battlefield, and I loved that the Doctor was involved with King Arthur. It fitted so much. Yeah, I'm still waiting for the Ginger Doctor. I am still waiting for him. That was from the novel, of course. Stephen O'Neill reminded us that Battlefield was, of course, the final appearance of Nick Courtney as the Brigadier. Absolutely. Yeah.
No, that's not strictly true, but we will go on that.
No, we're not going to. That's something else we're going to be coming to in the Wilderness series.
Yeah.
Graham saying, sad to hear that JNT has a lot of regrets. I know he's not everyone's cup of tea, but his passion for the show surely can't be overstated. No, I mean, he protected it so much. And from what I can gather, you know, he was fighting a lot of fires behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And he was basically told, you know, if you just go, then the show will come off air. So that's why he should have taken Bergerac when it came along. Yeah. Bless him. And as I say, it was one of the regrets he had. What else have we got there? Good to see you all in the chat. Nice to see you. Funky is saying to us, JNT was probably still hurting from the Saywood disputes too. Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I don't think he ever recovered from that, Paul, to be quite honest.
I don't think he did. I think the series recovered from it. Certainly 25 26, like we said, were really good seasons. And that really was starting to improve. And it's a shame they cut it and didn't give us 27. But I don't think you can overlook JNT's contribution to 80s Doctor Who. It's massive. And if you look at all these episodes, there's some great classic stories amongst those 9 years or 10 years, however long it is he was there for, because it's a lot of good classic episodes on a par with some from the 70s and 60s as well, definitely, you know?
Yeah. Paul Schlafter saying to us, we have a lot to thank JNT for. He really did his best to keep the show going. So sad he died at such a young age. It was really a bit of a shocker, that one. And Denny, JNT was the main reason why Doctor Who was introduced to the States and Canada through PBS. My God, yes, it was, because he spent most of his time over there promoting it. You know, he was very big on that, wasn't he, Paul? He just loved all that and just getting it. And it benefits.
He liked to party, didn't he? Put it that way. So
yeah, but he did the groundwork in many ways when the series came back in 2005. You know, jumping ahead slightly, of course, but he did, because there was a fan base there ready to support it when it came back. But it must have been a culture shock for everybody. What's this? What do you mean? What's a housing estate? Can you imagine?
Well, you just have to see when the 20th anniversary, there's all these wonderful news items about the big conventions in the States. And they were massive PR things for Doctor Who in America. It was brilliant. It really was.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. It's great that you're all with us remembering 1989, the eve of the Wilderness years. We've got Farsight, and I remember this one well. At that time, Jeremy Brett was the fan favorite to replace Sylvester. And that's because Jeremy Brett, of course, was having a huge success with Granada Television's Sherlock Holmes. And for me, he became my Sherlock Holmes just as much as Joan Hickson became my Miss Marple. And the two of them were on more or less at the same time, you know, Paul, do you remember?
Yeah.
One on BBC, and then Jeremy Brett, as I say, on ITV. And they were huge shows. They were commanding millions of viewers back in the old days. Absolutely fantastic. So it's an example of what I was saying on our recent headline show, where when somebody makes it big and they become quite successful, they're also automatically associated with Doctor Who. So we've all been there before. You know,
I think he would have been a great choice because I think there are huge
yeah.
similarities between Doctor Who and Sherlock Holmes, as been proven with the Doctor and the Master being the Doctor and Moriarty kind of idea. So he's a very similar character in many ways, but very different as well. But Jeremy Brett has got an amazing screen presence. Would have been a great Doctor, really. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, so we've got all this, and this is 1989. That was an indication of what happened in early 1989 with Doctor Who Monthly when they confirmed that season 26 was on the way. Hurrah! We all say, hurrah! We're getting another series. How exciting! And that's what it was like, Paul, wasn't it? It's we're going to get another series. It wasn't a case of, as it had been when we were growing up, just assuming that Doctor Who was going to be back the next year. Now we were all in this bit where we were thinking, we've got to wait to hear if it's coming back. So it was wonderful that we were hearing that in 1989 we were going to get a Doctor Who series. But from Doctor Who Monthly in June, this came up. Now, this is the first I've seen about this in print. Cancellation rumours, quote unquote, nonsense. In the middle of increased public awareness of Doctor Who and developing merchandising, including model figures, that was Dapol, everybody, target books, the stage play, and Doctor Who magazine, there has been a spate of unfounded rumours regarding the future of the show. Certain fanzines, Doctor Who magazine, reported in March that the Doctor again faced.
I hope Gary's watching. Okay.
This is where this came from, because if you got the fanzines, as many of us did, it was there. It was the fans that got to the rumor first that this was going to be the last series. So Doctor Who Monthly, this is June's Doctor Who Monthly, which would have come out in May that year, was behind the times again, just simply because of the way it's produced, like it is today, really. It's not as instant, is it? But we'll have a look at this. A certain fanzines reported in March that the Doctor again faced a cancellation threat following leaked reports of a meeting between BBC One controller Jonathan Powell and BBC Enterprises. Now, BBC Enterprises is, of course, today BBC Studios. Doctor Who magazine's own inquiries indicate that these reports are without foundation, although it is known that Doctor Who is one of several BBC programmes being considered for independent production next year, with the BBC aiming to have at least 25% of its programmes made outside the company. Many drama programmes are under scrutiny. On the magazine programme side, Kilroy is already essentially an independent programme, as reported in the trade paper and broadcast in March. Several companies have expressed an interest in taking on Doctor Who, although these cannot be named at this time. It seems likely that if the programme does go independent, BBC Enterprises will retain all licensing and marketing rights. So there we have the first indication of another cancellation in Doctor Who magazine, the June edition. So we're halfway through the year nearly. And I remember reading that thinking, not quite believing it. I'll put it that way, Paul. I'm not quite, because I'd read some of the stuff in some of the fanzines. I'd met with other fans at this point. I don't know if you remember, but I certainly remember Who Views. There was this real strong belief that the 26th season of Doctor Who could be the last one.
Yeah. It's really bad timing, though, isn't it, for Doctor Who magazine to bring it up? What you said was March, you said? I mean, that's kind of... the show doesn't air until October, September, October, I think it was, when it was. And it's like... That's really put a downer on it before it's even been broadcast, which is such a shame, you know?
Yeah.
Because they're all very excited about that prospect. But you're right, there was a definite sense in the air that was coming to an end. And I think we're very lucky to get 4 seasons after the cancellation in 85. I really do. We're lucky to get that. And we're all disappointed it wasn't continued because it was so good. But yeah, I think we all had that feeling in our water that it was going to be pulled off, definitely, yeah.
Model figures, says Robert Payne. What is this modern idea? Yeah. We've been crying out for action figures for years as kids. Certainly I had been. And what we got was Dapol. I look at the Dapol figures I've got now, and they're just so weak in comparison. But back in 1989, they were brilliant. I mean, I always looked at them as a teenager, going, "Ooh, is that it?" But they were faithful to the Star Wars size of figures and stuff like this.
Yeah,
and it was exciting to have them. And they were British. They felt part of a renaissance, really, in a sense, because
It was just unfortunate their attention to detail wasn't so good. That was the thing.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the first times I met J&T, says Teddy Reggie Rocks, is our Phil. We were at JT. We were at Longleat together. That's right. J&T walked past. I was a bit starstruck, and then he shouted hello at JT. I was really impressed, but I've never told JT though. Well, there it is. It's all recorded now. He was actually impressed with me for once. Was Phil? Yes, it was a great event actually. Yeah, we're going to be looking at those as part of this series as well. So if any of you were at those events at Longleat that John helped put together, then you can get in touch with us. You know how to do it now. You can get in touch at whosviews1@gmail.com if you've got any photographs you want to be put into all of this. Any of your local groups as well through the wilderness years, any of the conventions you went to, anybody you met. We'd love to have them. And if you were happy to share them, get them sent over.
Well, I did meet J&T in about 85 when he came up for the Edinburgh Book Festival. And I met him. We had our local had a small convention at the same time. And surprise, surprise, I got chatting to him in the bar, as you do.
Yeah, we were all, those bar meetings, eh? Absolutely.
So,
you won't get that today at your Comic Cons, everyone.
Yeah.
So what used to happen basically is Doctor Who conventions, especially through the wilderness years, became sort of a family feel. And you got to know the actors and the production staff or whoever was actually there. And there were occasions where, you would actually just end up in the bar chatting to them after they'd done the stint on the stage or before the stint on the stage. And that was more revealing sometimes, but it was so nice because they were so comfortable going on stage, talking to loads of people because they'd had a drink with them or they'd had breakfast or they'd had lunch or whatever. They were really fantastic, fantastic years. Dapol never got round Dapol never got round to completing their Mel Power Rangers range. I only got the pink and the blue, so funky. Yeah, and the only Mel action figure we got an Ace one, didn't we?
Yeah.
We got an Ace one. I don't think we got any other companions. Correct me if I'm wrong. Can't remember.
I don't. We did, apart from K9, of course. We got K9
in green. Yeah, lovely.
In green, yeah.
And Paul Schlefter, they're never going to live that down. I got my Dapol figure from Longleat. Still got them now. They're a little battered. I was confused as to why Davros had 2 arms. Yeah, and why did the TARDIS console have 5 sides? Yeah. This was John releasing power a little bit, because had he seen these things, he would have said that's wrong a little bit quicker, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
But they weren't coming through the Doctor Who production office at that point, I'm sure.
But I think most fans probably acted out how Davros lost his arm, probably, to get rid of it.
Yeah. Right. So that was June, where that little rumor Doctor Who magazine reports on of a cancellation coming up. So that was June. And it's really strange because the month after, in July's edition, this happens. So they're celebrating 150 issues of the magazine in this month. But look at this, season 27 news. Sylvester McCoy has been asked to stay on as the Doctor if the BBC decide to go with the 27th season of Doctor Who. They've asked me to do another season if they do a season 27. And I've agreed to do it, said Sylvester, on location for The Curse of Fenric. I have a good time and it's great fun. It's quite good, really, because it gives me 7 months to potter about and do other things. Companion Sophie Aldred has also expressed wishes to stay with the programme beyond the current season. A final decision will be made later in the year regarding the future of Doctor Who at the BBC and its regular cast. So here we are, and that particular season 27, tentatively, but we know actually that was true.
Yeah. And he said that in subsequent interviews since then that he was going to stay on for a 4th year. Apparently, J&T bribed him, though. If you don't sign on for a 4th year, you won't get a 3rd or something like that, I heard, which is interesting, yeah.
Yeah, because he was that's right. He was asked to, while he was doing his 2nd season, as was happening, if he would do a 4th, and that's what he said to him, wasn't it, allegedly? Yeah.
One of the things that disappointed me was we never got past the 14 episodes. Because I always thought that Trial of the Time Lord was a one-off for 14, and might go back to 26 again. We never did, which is such a shame.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it is. But 14 became sort of the standard for drama, didn't it?
Yeah.
Unless you were classed as a soap opera like EastEnders on the BBC, which of course was taking up a huge amount of airtime. It was on twice a week.
Yeah.
Every week of the year, and then an omnibus edition on Sundays. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Yeah.
And the whole thing about 1985, do you remember when the show was cancelled in 85 and then the fans reacted, so it was brought back very quickly? And that's when we got 14 episodes from The Trial of a Time Lord onwards.
Yeah.
The press were very keen to say it's because the BBC were looking to get money to EastEnders. I actually think that's true, Who viewers.
Yeah, so do I. I think it is because they needed to get. I think they did not do EastEnders a bit earlier than they planned, so they had to claw back money quickly in order to launch it sooner to beat the competition. I think at one point.
Yeah,
and that's why they did it early, and we lost out basically.
Yeah, and other shows as well. The Hot Shoe Show with Bonnie.
Come Dancing was another one, I think, as well. Yeah,
there were loads he got rid of, wasn't it? The original Come Dancing, he got rid of that after 20-something years on the air.
Yeah.
Ace would have left 2 stories in, though, says Matt the Silent. Yes, she would have done, although I don't think Sophie knew about that at that time. But they were planning to write Ace out, of course, in season 27. And also, McCoy has let it be known since, of course, that he would have liked to have gone at the end of 27. So they would have had to work into a new companion and a new doctor had it gone into 28. This was all the stuff we used to talk about in 1989. And
then we'd have got Richard Griffith as the 8th Doctor. Remember that?
If John had stayed.
If
John had stayed, definitely. Stephen Braddock, just like the series, the Dapod figures were just starting to get really good. Trout and the Tomb Cybermen, and then they were cancelled too. Yeah, they were. The license was withdrawn. Funky's reminding us that Dapod's Tom Maker had without a scarf. I got a witty little knitter to make a mini one whilst making mine. Oh, bless.
Oh, that's lovely. Great stuff. Yeah.
So when were, says Darry, the decisions to recommission another season made in the late 80s? Well, the season to do season 26, as the magazine pointed out there, was done very early on, or in the series run when it was broadcast in the autumn of 88. And that was season 25. So that was actually quite handy for John and Andrew Cartmel, who knew that they had a series to go and they had to go and get the budgets done and the scripts done and blah, blah, blah. Because at this point, you have to remember that Doctor Who was being broadcast in the winter months. So September the 7th-ish, it would really start around and it would go into the early December. So it was all filmed very, very quickly, really, that year, which is why in 1989, in Survival, you can see our summer. Because you know what? I remember that summer of 1989. Well, it was bloody hot.
Yeah.
I was having a great time, everybody. 19-year-old, great T-shirts.
So much so it affected the filming of Survival, didn't it? Some of the cat people went berserk with the heat and ran off, didn't they? So
Yeah. Yes, Matt is saying to us here, we would have gotten Rain Cunningham, a companion in the form of a modern cat burglar and safecracker. Think Christina de Sousa, most likely played by Julia Sawala or Julia Ormond. That's right. The companion's name was, we didn't know this in 1989, but it was in the Wilderness years that this came out, wasn't it, Matt? That Rain would have been the character of the new character. Yeah,
I was going to make that comparison myself because it is very obvious that Michelle Ryan, who did the Planet of the Dead, the Tennant special, is very similar to that kind of character, I think. Yeah.
It's strange, isn't it, really, how things come around a little bit, these unused ideas. I think there's more, actually, when you look at some of the rumors that are going on about what's going to happen in Christmas 26, I just keep thinking, I've read that somewhere before in a book. Oh, I know which one it is. Because some of the rumors, Tennant's doctor's looking for his previous selves or something like this.
Yeah.
Cara, get well soon. Cara's not feeling too good, everybody. So get well soon, darling. Let me know if keep in touch. Make sure I want to know you're all right. And what have we got here? That 14 episodes was a bit of BBC BS, says Funky. You're getting more episodes a year, but the 13 episodes were twice the length. That's right.
Yeah.
They gave us 14 episodes. Yabu to you.
And they made it sound like it was extra. It was one extra, kind of. They thought they made, very cunning. Yeah.
And that's the trouble with the BBC then and since, says Robert Payne. They've tried to do what the other channels do rather than make different, distinct programs. You're right, actually, Robert. And this is actually on record because when you look at interviews with such people like Jonathan Powell and Peter Cregan and even Michael Grade, they were so unfairly comparing Doctor Who at that point in the late 80s to the fact that Star Trek The Next Generation had now arrived in 1987 here on the BBC. It was broadcast on BBC Two, but it was there. So they didn't really have to bother with it because it was on BBC Two. That was a different controller, a different production, a different controlling force for BBC Two. But they were aware of it. And it always infuriates me now with hindsight that they were saying things like, oh, Star Trek had come along and Doctor Who looked tired. Well, you should have just raised the budget then, shouldn't you? And invested more time in it. Because the potential with Andrew Cartmel, Paul, was there.
Well, that's what annoys me about Michael Grade when he was on Room 101 and he said, I couldn't watch Doctor Who. It was all this low budget, clunking about, really crap monsters trying to scare you. Yes. It looked really low budget. I'd seen Star Wars and Close Encounters. You can't compare it to that, firstly. But also, like you said, if you're the controller, raise the budget and make it work if it's not working at the moment. Because it had huge potential. And it could have competed with Star Trek's Next Gen quite easily, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Gavin Graham saying the BBC especially became enamored with fitting their drama into the spring, summer, autumn, and winter seasons from the mid-80s. No more 20-episode adaptations. Yeah, that's right. And it was all down to budget as well, of course. But of course, they were coming in after huge success of the 70s and early 80s of BBC's winter, autumn dominance, which would always start with Doctor Who in September. And then other shows would come around it on Saturday night. The big nights on Saturday night, the golden age of Saturday night television was the BBC's. You don't get it anymore, but Doctor Who was a very strong contender in that mix. And then this lot were all coming in on the back of it, weren't they, Gavin? And trying to recreate it in their image, but it wasn't quite the same. And ITV by that point, Paul, I don't know if you remember, it had Buck Rogers in the 25th Century at the beginning of the 80s, and they played that on repeat forever as far as I was concerned. Then they had the A-Team in the mid-80s to the late 80s. Knight Rider was coming along, or they had these other things that they could put on opposite Doctor Who on a Saturday night. And I think that's why they buckled at the end of the 80s and went, we don't want it on a Saturday now. I can't even remember what went into the Doctor Who slot. But they put it on opposite Coronation Street, the biggest show of the time.
And if that was an excuse to try and cancel it because the ratings were low, but believe me, I'm not that naive to think they didn't do that on purpose because it's a terrible idea. It really was.
Haven't they come out somewhere saying that they did?
Yeah.
One of the three came out and said, we did that deliberately to get rid of it.
But it started to grow. The viewing figures started to grow, didn't they? Even opposite Coronation Street. I think they got up to 5 and a bit million in some cases, which is great. Opposite Coronation Street, to be honest.
It was brilliant. And had we had the ability then to also ascertain how many people were VHS recording it, or even Betamax recording it then, it would have been even higher. Because, of course, not everybody was able to watch Doctor Who live as transmitted because your mum or your aunt or your gran or whoever it was watching Coronation Street.
Exactly. Yeah.
I was lucky. I didn't have to put up with all of that. I was at university, so I could watch. We all got together on a Monday night, Paul, at one of the flats that had a telly. And then we all watched Doctor Who, and then we go to the pub on a Monday night. It was terrible.
Lovely, yeah.
Fast Night, that's exactly what I was looking at. Christmas 2026 is the 8 Doctors all over again. I hope Terrence Dicks is around spiritually to guide them.
I do hope so, yeah, to keep them right.
Yeah,
I'm a big. I don't know the 8 Doctors is a fan favorite. I quite enjoyed it when I read it. I quite liked it. Yeah,
it's just a typical. He was told. Terrence was again. We're going to be looking at some of these as part of this series. Everyone, it's going to be a long series. So stay with us here on Who's Views. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're still subscribed. Walks down memory lane. It's going to be brilliant. But the 8 Doctors was just. He was told to write a traditional Doctor Who story, and that's what he bloody well did. There you go.
Yeah.
We'll be looking at what happened after the 8 Doctors in that particular episode, whenever that comes along. Cregeen was brought in from Making the Bill at Thames, says Rory Neal. He came in from ITV, didn't he? This was after, of course, Grade had gone. Oh, this was happening. Grade had left the BBC and gone back to Channel 4. Jason G, what day and time were these seasons on? Potentially up against ITV? Well, they were up against Coronation Street, and they were usually on Monday nights, weren't they, Paul?
Monday and Wednesdays, 7:35. So Coronation Street had already started, so that was a handicap in itself, wasn't it?
Yeah. I remember the Mondays. I just remember it being every Monday. But it flipped between the two deliberately, as we now know. Domgo is saying to us, hi, Domgo. McCoy didn't appeal to the general public. I remember polls at the time saying he was not popular. I
Well,
remember some
Nina Mishkoff did describe him as a Wally of the Week when he arrived, apparently, at one point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
didn't she? Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Nina Miss, ooh, and she's still around today, sadly.
Yes.
She's still around today. Darren Reed wants to know, did you have a television license at uni, JT? It wasn't my telly, so I don't know. I doubt they did. But we used to go to a flat about 2 floors up from where I lived. And guess what, everybody? It was 2 girls who were science fiction and fantasy nerds.
And did they enjoy season 26 out of interest? Did they like it?
There was a lot of laughs in season 25 and 26 and a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
But yes, people, you know, I mean, must have been about 6 of us, 7 of us that got together every Monday to watch these things. And I'm the biggest Doctor Who fan there, but everyone else, because they were involved in the communities of science fiction or fantasy or Star Trek or whatever, we enjoyed it. We were students. We enjoyed it. And then we would talk about it as we went to the pub, as we had a drink, and as we went back to the flats.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Darren, if they had a TV license. I wouldn't have thought so. It's students. How many students have them? Setting a trend back in 1989, we were. Darren's Own. I remember that after Doctor Who moved back from Saturdays in 1987, the replacement was Noel Edmonds' Telly Addicts, and him again with his Saturday Roadshow. That would make sense, Darren. Thank you. Yeah,
I used to love Telly Addicts. It was great.
I did as well. I used to like the odd, occasionally to have a Doctor Who question.
Yes, yeah, and a wee clip. I remember they showing a bit from Dalek Master Plan on one episode at one point. That was great. Yeah,
I remember that one as well. Just thinking,
yeah.
And I went to the Doctor Who local group in Liverpool at that time. And I went in and said, did anybody see Telly Addicts? Yes, we're just talking about it now. And it was a joy because we all talked about it. Wonderful. It was wonderful.
I was one of those sad fans. If I knew it was on, I'd record it. That's how sad I was. Yeah.
Oh gosh, look at you. We've got here that Mark Greaves, thank you for your super chat, mate. The BBC in the late 80s made mistake after mistake. They kept buying American TV shows that were cancelled after one season, Blue Thunder and Manimal, etc., etc. Yes, they did. Not that they were going to know anything over there, but yeah. I remember also there was a backlash from the British public at one point, so there's too many American shows on the BBC because it was on Points of View and Open Air.
It's very interesting. I've got a few of them. Some of the sort of late 70s, early 80s stuff they show, like Buck Rogers and Battlestar Galactica. I've got them on DVD, and I watched them again a couple of years ago, and it's amazing how the effects look great. But as soon as they cut to studio, especially in Buck Rogers, it looks very disco, very 70s, 80s, and it's not dated very well at all. Whereas I think classic Who, certainly the 80s, is not so dated. You know?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Fastlane is saying Sylvester beat Tom to the fan favorite in the Doctor Who magazine poll. He did, which was I think the year after 1989. So it was either 1990 or 91. He did, and that came as a shock to everybody, I think.
Well, at that point, was Colin still coming at the bottom because he had such a hard time about these polls, didn't he?
He did. He really did. He really did.
Undeserved, I have to say.
Yeah. The other big mainstay of 1989, of course, although not as frequent as it had been in the past, were, of course, the Target Doctor Who novelizations. And here they are. You got these in 1989, Delta and the Bannermen, The War Machines, Dragonfire, Attack of the Cybermen, Mind Warp from the Trial of a Time Lord, The Chase, Mission to the Unknown, Mutation of Time, which of course are both parts 1 and 2 of the Daleks Master Plan, Silver Nemesis, and The Greatest Show in the Galaxy. And can I just share with you all right now, Who viewers, that see that cover for Mind Warp, The Trial of a Time Lord? I was so annoyed with it. And this is where you get me as a fan, because the other versions of the other stories in the Trial of a Time Lord, you had the Mysterious Planet, and you had the Ultimate Foe, and you had Terror of the Vervoids, all had the blue spines. Mind Warp had a white spine.
Dear BBC now, or dear Target, yeah.
oh, trust me. I wrote that letter. I'm sure a lot of us did, because I also remember certain people who were reviewing Mind Warp at the time in 1989 pointed it out as well, because it also had the seal of Rassilon on the back of the books when it was on the blue spines. And somebody somewhere just didn't go with the flow. And even now, Paul, when I walk past the Target books, when I'm up in the when I can get into the Doctor Who loft and I walk back, it's there and it glares at me going na 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 na. I hate it.
They have no idea how OCD roll are. They have to keep it and the style it started with and not change it. Because I expect them to do that when if they do season 16, the Key at Time season on the Blu-ray, they'll change how the format is. Don't do that. Please don't do that. You know?
They wouldn't dare. They couldn't dare. Oh. But there you go, everybody. They were the WHL and Target lanes. As I say, not so many at this particular point, because by this point in 1989, they were running out of stories to actually look at.
Mm.
And that was backed up with the fact that in 1989, we also got 2 original novels from the Missing Episodes range. Now, these, of course, are the infamous Nightmare Fair by Graham Williams, God bless him, and The Ultimate Evil by Wally K. Daly from the unproduced and untransmitted season 23. So I remember, again, at the time, Paul, this was really exciting getting these back in 1989. I have to say, I really enjoyed the Nightmare Fair, which has since been done in other formats, as The Ultimate Evil have. I didn't really like The Ultimate Evil. I think it needed honed. I didn't really like that one at all. But
the Nightmare Fair was good. I would love to have seen them filming in Blackpool. That would have been brilliant.
Yeah. And it wasn't. This was new, actually, that we'd actually had novels from Target, WHL, of Doctor Who stories that didn't make it.
Yeah.
You think you would have gone with the big one, which was Shada, but Douglas Adams was still around. So that wasn't going to happen. So they went for those 2. And they did a new edition, revised and updated, of the program guide, which for years became the Bible to a generation of Doctor Who fans. It was 2 editions back in the original publication. This was an updated version of the program guide back in 1989. The nice
and it goes up to survival, doesn't it? So it's up to the end of the classic, which is brilliant.
Yeah. So that came along towards the end of 89 as well. Ready for the Christmas market, I think that one was. But happy days there. Happy days indeed. Yeah. And of course, what happened with that is, believe it or not, everybody, the 2 adventures there, the Nightmare Fair and The Ultimate Evil, were fairly successful and certainly sold, Paul. So I'm led to believe they sold the equivalent of what the actual TV novelized did. And they sold more than the Missing Companions range, which had been out previously, which was Turlough and the Earthlink Dilemma, Harry Sullivan's War, and K9 and Company.
Mm.
So interesting stuff there, because we all know what happened then, because they morphed into the New Adventures. And I can tell you here that 1989 was a big year for the New Adventures. And at this point, I want to give a shout out to David J. Howe for this. This is the Who Adventures, the art and history of Virgin Publishing's Doctor Who fiction. There you go. Can you see that? Still available from Telos Books. But I thought this was a lovely, because I've got the Target book, Paul, like you have.
Yeah.
That David published. And I thought this was, a nice sequel to that, actually. So I got it. It's the same sort of format. But in this, Who viewers, in this book, is a bit about 1989, and I just wanted to read a bit out, if I may, because it's part of that year. So bear with me here. This is Peter Darvill Evans, who a lot of us of a certain age will remember the name Peter Darvill Evans. He was in charge of Doctor Who Target Books at the time, wasn't he, Paul?
Yes, he was. Yeah.
And he says here, when I arrived at WHL at the end of February 1989, I was aware that there had been some original tie-in fiction published by the company, things like the Harry Sullivan book and also a Blake Seven book. I was also aware that these titles had done less well than the novelizations, and that wasn't a terribly good precedent. There was an issue for Darvill Evans, as he was determined to get a range of original fiction off the ground. 1989, everyone. I was able to finesse the problem, he explains, and persuade everyone in the company by explaining that the poor sales were because those tie-ins didn't have the Doctor in. You can't have Doctor Who without the Doctor, he said. Luckily, there was no one around to remember my forceful arguments, and 5 years later, when we took the Doctor out of the New Adventures, when the BBC took back the license. I was also encouraged that the missing stories, The Nightmare Fair and The Ultimate Evil, published by Target, novelizations of television scripts commissioned by the BBC for the 23rd season, but then cancelled when the show changed direction, seemed to sell as well as the standard novelizations. That strengthened my view that if the Doctor was present, then the books would do fine. I knew the BBC's earlier argument for not allowing original fiction to be published revolved around the desire to see all the television stories novelized first. Well, we'd now done that, because everything was now commissioned, in
Yeah.
1989.
Apart from City of Death and the Pirate Planet and all that kind of stuff, wasn't it? So,
And everybody agreed there was a certain reason you couldn't do that.
yeah. So,
Brexit.
yeah.
And furthermore, by October of 1989, there were no immediate plans to do any more television stories. So all that just strengthened my argument that now was the time to do some original fiction. Darvel Evans explains that he met with John Nathan Turner in October of 1989, and the outgoing producer finally agreed that original fiction could be published with the proviso that he would be involved in setting up the range. The novels were initially envisaged as continuing the Doctor's adventures directly on from the end of the television story Survival, and Darvel Evans suggested that starting the first original novel with the lines of Munro's novelization of that story. Nathan Turner wanted Darvel Evans to involve Andrew Cartmel, and and off they went. So from there, after years and years and years, it was the success of the Missing Adventures that justified the New Adventures, everybody. How's that for you? That's great, isn't it?
It is great, but this is the slippery slope when Doctor Who started to get a bit sexy, wasn't it? So that's the disadvantage of that for me personally, a little bit. Yeah.
Well, do you remember that, Paul, as well? Because when it was announced that the New Adventures were coming along, albeit in book form, that's what the press got at.
Yeah.
That's what it was, wasn't it? It's going to be sexy and it's going to have adult scenes in it. And I remember certain booksellers being a bit skeptical about that when this came out. When the reps started to come out to say, there's going to be an original range of Doctor Who novels. Some of the booksellers in the shops, because in those days they were able to order what they wanted in for their own branches of shop, of the bookshop. They'd seen this in the press and went, I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, that was.
I think to be fair though, they underestimated the fact that they had a massive adult audience for Doctor Who, and that's what it was aimed at, really, to be honest. Because I'm not sure if I was sort of 12 would want to read it, necessarily. But if you're an adult, it's more you've got a disposable income as well, haven't you, as an adult, which is partly that was the audience they're aiming for, wasn't it? Is what I'm trying to say. But,
yes, they were. And also they were very aware that those of us that had grown up with the Doctor in the 60s and 70s were now in our 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
So that was the market they went for. And it was more mature. It was a culture shock reading Time Worm after years and years and years of the Target novelizations. Do you remember that, everybody in the chat? Goodness me. It was, whoa. And John, I don't know what John Peel was doing, but goodness me, that was, it was heavy work. I could probably read it today easier because I'm older and wiser and uglier.
Yeah, well, I'm saying nothing.
Very wise.
Very wise. Yeah.
Well, of course, 1989, we did get finally Doctor Who came back in September on BBC One for season 26. Everybody, we got Battlefield, Ghostlight, The Curse of Fenric, and Survival. 4 stories that lasted over 14 weeks, and the press were around. Well, I say press. The Radio Times at the time got this. This is from, as you can see at the top there, the 2nd to the 8th of September 1989 edition of the Radio Times, where they covered Monster Bash, Ace in a Frock, Doctor Who's tomboy assistant, has even more surprises up her sleeve in store. Sophie Aldred tells all. So this, of course, was an interview with Sophie Aldred, who, of course, at the time was also doing a television show called Corners. So that's it there. A picture of the Haemovores. I was always thinking to myself, oh goodness me, this should have more. I was so disappointed that it got that. That's all it got, and it got the usual Radio Times little blurb on the day page. But that's the only thing I kept in my collection was that bit that came in towards the back, basically.
I think the trouble was with Scene 26 and a lot of McCoy in general. It wasn't that highly publicized at all, even on trailers and stuff like that. There wasn't many trailers. I think if you were looking for it, you might find it, but you had no idea where it was because it wasn't promoted very well.
No. And the papers didn't seem to be bothering either at that point, everybody, as well. It was such a shame. I don't know. It had lost momentum. It was being taken for granted by everybody, really. And as a Doctor Who fan, I was looking at the papers and Radio Times and stuff like this, and just thinking there's not much coverage at all. There was this particular one, though, which came from People magazine, which is another interview with Sophie back from the day, as you can see there. This is from November the 26th, 1989. And this is where they talk about the incident in Battlefield where Sylvester saved her. You know, the bit with the water tank. We all know the story now.
Yeah, that's her eye patch story, isn't it? Now, to be honest.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
Yes.
it is. It is. But at this particular point, while Doctor Who was on, Paul, I don't know if you remember, but it was getting on the fan circuit for all of us. It was getting very heated. In a sense, not in a nasty way. Don't even mean heated as it is now, but there was more and more word coming through that the show wasn't going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about yourself, but I heard this one evening. The show's being broadcast at this particular point. So I'd gone to a local meeting at the weekend with a Dwaz group in Liverpool. And one of the fellas there said, "Have you heard the news?" And I said, "What news?" And he said, "No, Doctor Who's been axed. It's definitely not coming back next year." And I said, "No, I haven't heard that." He said, "Yep, yeah, the BBC are trying to hush it down." It's trying to hush it down. The BBC aren't mentioning it. They're trying to hush it down because they don't want the letter writing campaign. And he was referring there to 1985. And I remember thinking at the time, they can't do that. That's not what they're going to do. He was spot on right, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. At the point, I had heard rumours, but like today, until it's concrete, you don't believe it, do you?
No.
And it was never confirmed. It just faded away, you know. So, yeah,
that's it. And that was all part of the actual plan, wasn't it? Really, that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to let it fade away, which is sad, really. Doctor Who Monthly in November, the Doctor's anniversary month, put this into the Gallifrey Guardian: the programme cancelled. What they say here is the future of Doctor Who still remains uncertain following season 26. No final decision has been made by the BBC at the time of going to press, although several options are known to be under consideration. Outright cancellation seems unlikely, provided ratings for season 26 are high enough to please the BBC management. If the programme does well in its Wednesday night slot at this point against Coronation Street, the BBC will either commission a new series within the organisation or put Doctor Who out to an independent company through BBC Enterprises. Despite the poor coverage given to the start of the new season in the Radio Times, press coverage elsewhere has been good, Doctor Who Monthly says. Season 26 was the subject of a feature in Rupert Murdoch's TV Guide in October. Doctor Who The Ultimate Adventure, the play, has also helped to keep the show in the public eye since May. The programme remains a firm favourite in Britain, and overseas sales of the show are on the increase as more episodes featuring Sylvester McCoy are completed. Another plus for the show is the steady sale of merchandise associated with the show, produced by both BBC Enterprises and official licensees such as Dapol and Marvel. The Doctor Who BBC video range is particularly popular, capitalising on public recognition and on what Enterprise sales handouts describe as a fanatical following. That's us, folks.
Yeah, that's us.
With the BBC seeking to develop all sources of income through Enterprises, cancelling Doctor Who seems ridiculous, rather ridiculous. However, outgoing producer John Nathan Turner is now working on other projects, and no new producer has yet been named. Doctor Who magazine has also received worrying news that one BBC outside broadcast location unit is closing down at the company's Elstree studios. Studio time is expensive, and Doctor Who has become increasingly reliant on outside broadcast facilities in the past few years. Since the popular soap opera EastEnders uses a considerable allocation of OB facilities, this will mean BBC resources for OB work will be low for any independent company taking on Doctor Who. Frontrunner in the independent bid to take over Doctor Who from the BBC is said to be Cinema Verity, a company run by the first producer of the programme, Verity Lambert. However, a spokesperson for that company told Doctor Who magazine that there was absolutely no truth in the rumours whatsoever, and that they were planning to take over the series. A fourth option for the show is that the BBC may well decide to commission a completely new science fiction television series to replace Doctor Who completely. Whatever happens in the next few months, Doctor Who will do its utmost to keep readers interested or informed, of events. Yeah.
So that was Crime Traveller we're talking about, was it?
That was certainly
Crime Traveller.
Yeah, that came along afterwards. But there we go. That was from the November edition of Doctor Who magazine, everybody. Shows you, doesn't it, really? Let's go into the chat. Derek Hart's with us. Hi, Derek. How are you? Gosh, what do you all think about that one in the chat, everybody? Well, selling merchandise continues to this day. Yeah, it seems to be in the same sort of, says Bill Larry, seems to be in the same sort of.
The thing about this is they needed to have a show to promote the merchandise, although it did sell quite well in the Wilderness Years because that's all we had. But I think they missed the point because they need to. I think when they got the McGann movie later on, they had an injection of new material so they could work around that and promote around that. But they didn't have anything to promote, did they? Between 89 and 96, did they really? To be honest,
no, not at all, not at all. Yeah, they killed it, says Stephen Bright, by creating no fuss by actually announcing anything at all and let public interest wane. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, guys, when you look at the DVDs or the Blu-ray box sets now, and you can see the BBC inserts for the promoting the show, you know, the trailers, because I don't remember them. I don't remember them at all. And you just think, oh, okay. I don't remember any for season 26, Paul.
Nor do I. Only familiar with them because they're on the Blu-ray and they're all on there, which they look great. But I don't remember seeing them at the time. You know, maybe one for Battlefield or something. That was about it, really.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I only knew that the date that Doctor Who was coming back because it was confirmed in the Dwaz newsletter.
Yeah.
You know, and that would tell you straight away this is going to be, you know, September the 7th or September the 6th or whatever it's going to be. It was around about that date, wasn't it? Really, that they were
it was. Yeah.
Always around about that. Because it tied in nicely with finishing it in December. Ready for
December
Christmas.
the 6th, I think, was the final episode of Survival, I think, as far as I remember. Off the top of my head.
1989. Yes.
Yeah, which is, scary.
Yeah. Darren Reed is saying to us that this is the well-practiced BBC trope of nothing to see here, move on. And Mark Walker, bloody EastEnders. EastEnders was definitely the priority for them because it was getting huge viewing figures. It was getting about 20 million, wasn't it? Absolutely. It was shocking. It was absolutely shocking. Well, of course, what happened after the shock ending, and I mean that ending of on the 6th of December of Survival, where you get that voiceover and the Doctor and Ace are walking off into the sunset, basically. You just, I don't know about you guys, and I don't know about you, Paul, but I just remember thinking, oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. This is going off the air.
It had a finality to it, didn't it? I really felt you felt a kind of gut feeling that this was it, didn't you? And it felt like it was just and when we found out later, it was added later to tie it up. But at the time, you really felt, oh, this feels a bit like it's over, doesn't it? A bit, you know.
Yeah, it did really, and you know, I remember again meeting up with friends after that episode and just going, that's it. Is that it? Because we were so used to getting things over years and Doctor Who will be back next year. And for the past several years, we hadn't had that.
Yeah.
And this time there was nothing, absolutely nothing. But because you knew the state of the show as it was perceived by the public and perceived by the BBC, because we knew all this sort of stuff, you sort of knew this is it. This is it now. It's done.
Yeah.
It was a sad time, actually, that night back in December the 6th. It was a sad time. Matt is saying to us, he's going for it, Matt. Michael Grade and Jonathan Powers, selfish people who cancelled the show just because they didn't like it. Imagine if they got rumbled. But that's the truth. They didn't like it, and they got rid of it.
I think the thing is, they're meant to be impartial, aren't they, really? I think previous controllers didn't like all their output, but they'd have a variety of things to kind of, for a variety of tastes. Whereas if you don't like sci-fi, that's not up to you to decide on that. Other people do, you know what I mean? So
yeah. And the fact is as well, before they intervened with Michael Grade in 1985, I've said this before, Who viewers, but Michael Grade, I don't think he knew what he was talking about then. It was just because he didn't like the show. Because Doctor Who was getting anywhere between 7 to 9 million in 1985 for season 22.
Yeah.
That's very good for the time of it was broadcast on a Saturday at something stupid like 5:20 or something for a 45-minute episode. That's brilliant that people were watching it.
Opposite the A-Team and then Robin of Sherwood, etc. So it was doing really well considering, yeah.
Exactly. And then they messed it up by bringing it back 18 months later on 25-minute episodes, which I'm not, you know, I'm fond of 25-minute episodes. And they gave no guidance to John Nathan Turner or the team at all. They didn't say this is what we want. They didn't give them any more money. They just said, go on, off you go. And it went from up there in the ratings to down here. It was no.
But again, I think even with the fact of being off 18 months, there was not much of a fanfare of publicity to say
No.
it's coming back. Let's be excited.
Yes,
I think
exactly.
I do remember. I wasn't there, but I remember. I think the DOAS showed episode 1 of Child of the Time Lord at a convention. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that opening shot was amazing with the space station, etc. The
Yeah.
TARDIS, really good stuff. But the general public had no idea it was coming back, and that's why it did so badly in the ratings. It had probably the lowest ratings it had for a long time at that point.
Yeah, and also it wasn't a very strong Saturday night lineup. You had Roland Rat before it, which was a big another thing from Michael Grade. He stole Roland Rat from ITV, and then brought it to the BBC, and it didn't work, and it didn't bring the people that were watching Roland Rat as part of Good Morning Television on TVAM. They didn't come over to what, probably because they were growing up.
They were hoping for a kind of Basil Brush type thing, weren't they, with that kind of lineup, weren't they?
Yeah, and they thought Roland was it, didn't he? He was a bit mistaken. Stephen Braddock is saying the only trailer I remember watching on BBC One was the one for Survival, where the cat on a horse grabs the runner, and the announcement, scary stuff in Doctor Who. And then the Jamie is saying to us, they actually trailed during the BBC Schools programmes. Oh, I remember seeing one for Survival literally when I was at school, when we were sat there waiting for Look and Read or some such. Really?
That must have been a treat, yeah.
Goodness me.
Yeah.
No wonder the rest of us didn't see it, because we were all out blooming working. Let's have a look. We've got Hartnell's Ghost with us. Hello, mate. Watching Ghostlight in hindsight is kind of poignant, knowing that during filming was when the cast and crew were told of the cancellation. I think it was shortly after they wrapped up Ghostlight, because they all had their wrap party, and apparently they were all going away, like, see you next year, see you next year, see you next year. And it didn't happen.
Well, as I was saying to you in the green room earlier, I think Colin Brake was going to be potentially, he was a script editor on EastEnders, was going to be put in the frame for replacing Andrew Cartmel as well. And that they were talking about that, because in the documentary I watched, apparently Colin Brake was introduced to Sylvester McCoy on the filming of Ghostlight. So they were still thinking about how they could work season 27 at that point,
Yeah, and you have to show it shows their professionalism, because they had to carry on in case the word was given.
Yeah.
But what would they have done without a producer? Because John was adamant he was going at that point. He was practically out the door, with half the office with him, from what I can tell.
And as many Doctor Who prop as he could manage, allegedly, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
In a wheelbarrow, probably, yes.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Funky, thank you for your super chat. Time to admit the truth. The show was cancelled because of me. I started watching in 1987, and anything I like only has 3 years of life left then. It wasn't because of you, Funky Wonky. No, it wasn't. Don't you worry about it. There were lots of other issues going on here. And Kerr Avon as well. Hello, mate. How are you? I remember in 1993, BBC Radio 5 was playing a 5-part adventure called The Paradise of Death, starring John Pertwee as the Doctor. I used to own this on BBC cassette. Strange you've mentioned that, isn't it, Paul?
Yes.
Stay with us.
Yeah, stay tuned, just to quote J&T, yes.
Yes, yes. Remember our Sound of Whoosic series? Yes, yes.
Have I got to listen to it again? Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, and the other one. Darren Reed, there's a lot of blame going on here. JT, we need that Who's Views therapy number. And Kirsty's reminding you all to please hit the like button and subscribe. And you can give us a hype as well if you want to as well. That's the new thing that's coming on now, isn't it? Jamie's saying to us, yep, it was a treat. I was the only Who fan in primary school or secondary, come to think of it. The show was not popular with kids anymore. It's strange how things come around, isn't it?
Yeah. I think part of that problem was because putting on at 25 to 8 on a Monday or Wednesday night, not a good time for kids. I remember them complaining about when Davison went to Mondays and Tuesdays at 5 to 7, when it was, and people were complaining, well, my son's just gone to Cubs, he's going to miss Doctor Who, or they're in the bath for school the next morning, so they missed it all.
Yeah.
So I think that was a big mistake for a family audience, because it was too late at night, really.
I still say that had they put the McCoy years on at 7 o'clock on a Saturday, it would have done well.
I agree, yeah. Totally.
Yeah. But no, it wasn't going to get to. I mean, they were quite happy, as you say, Paul, to put it on at 7:35 in a weekday, just so they had 25 minutes opposite Coronation Street, because that was the graveyard slot, wasn't it, for any show?
Yeah.
But had they put it on at 7 o'clock on a Saturday, with Bob's Full House after it and Roland Rat and God knows what on before it, I think it would have done well at 7 o'clock on a Saturday. And I think the ratings for Doctor Who would have been okay, especially for 7/26. But again, it needed that relief, and it wasn't there. Roland Rat bombed badly, better on TV-AM, but without the Rat going to the BBC, we would never have Timmy Mallet and Chris Evans, says Rory Neal. That's true.
The only good thing about Roland Rat is that Colin Baker appeared on his show as the Doctor. That was hilarious.
Yes, yeah. I just remember his impression.
Yay! That was brilliant. Yeah.
Fun fact for you, going off on a tangent slightly, everybody. But do you know that the guy that operated Roland Rat was the same guy that operated Mooncat?
Oh,
yes, David. I know that because I met him, and I said. He was coming off the back of Roland Rat years later, and this is this is in the 90s. And he was like, oh, yeah, I was delighted to meet him. So, oh my God, did you do Mooncat as well? And he says, how did you know? I said, well, the voice is the same. The Mooncat voice is electronic with Beryl Reid. It's a sort of electronic thing, but it's the same as the Rat, basically. Anyway, he was very nice. He was a very nice man. It was nice to meet him. Stephen O'Neill is saying to us, it's ironic that the first Doctor Who story shows the Doctor nearly killing a caveman with a stone, and the final story, Survival, has the seventh Doctor nearly killing the Master with a stone. Oh, I hadn't thought about that, Stephen. That's nice. Unintentional turnaround, that, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
I
do love that scene with the Master and the Doctor fighting, although McCoy's a bit kind of a bit hammy at that point, but it's quite a good scene, I have to say.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you. Very welcome, Hartnell's Ghost. And Paul Schlafs is saying to us, could you do an episode to celebrate JNT? Obviously, we would acknowledge his flaws, but he definitely deserves a celebration. We can certainly look at it for you, mate. Yeah, definitely. We can look at all that. Stay with us. Let's see what we can do. We'll have a look at one. Let's see what. Yeah, it's an interesting idea. Interesting. Yeah. It's a very controversial figure for John Nathan for lots of reasons, but we'll have a look. He
deserves more love, doesn't he? Let's be honest, he does. Yeah.
For keeping Doctor Who alive at a very difficult time as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The same graveyard slot, says Darren's Own, also claimed Tomorrow's World on Top of the Pops. Whatever the Beeb wanted rid of, they shoved it up against Corrie. They did, it's true. And then they would say, oh, there's a problem with the show. What's going on? It was nothing to do with that. It was just like you couldn't do anything against Corrie. 20 million people were tuning in. It was still beating EastEnders.
Yeah, they weren't brave enough to put EastEnders opposite, though, were they? They didn't compete with each other, did they? No.
That wouldn't have even been in their mindset, would it? Because they would have been going for the same audience, basically.
Yeah.
Was it 89, says Funky, that Unearthly Child came out on VHS? I think it was, actually, yeah. I think it was.
Of course, we'd seen it in 81, of course, hadn't we? So
we had, as part of the Five Faces, blown away by magical television.
Yeah.
Doctor Who Monthly, Doctor Who Magazine, was still hanging in there with this edition, everybody. Yes, bless it. This is the December 1989 edition of Doctor Who Magazine. And let's just focus in on that story up there, shall we? That says, no news is good news. Fans of Doctor Who are still waiting for definite news on the future of the series as Doctor Who Magazine went to press. No announcements are now expected until November 1989, but independent production of the series now seems increasingly likely. According to sources within the BBC, there may be no new Doctor Who produced for 1990 transmission, harking back to the 18th-month hiatus, which damaged the show during Colin Baker's tenure as the Doctor. However, with the film now in production, this should be more than enough to keep the mysterious Time Lord in the public eye. It looks as though the Daleks will be cheated from their latest attempts to defeat the Doctor. I hear newbies saying, a film, Paul?
A film. Yeah.
Well, yes, again, as we sort of knew at this particular point, it is in the position in this Doctor Who magazine that they have printed this. Film underway, question. No new information has been released on the proposed Doctor Who film. The contradiction, the article's on the same page. Although funding is in place and all advance payments to the BBC have been made. Coast to Coast are maintaining secrecy on the project, obviously worried that plots may be lifted by rival companies for other films. It's happened before and has happened since 1989, I can assure you. Production is still on schedule, however, with bids for aspects of production such as visual effects currently under consideration. So what is this all about? I hear you saying, Coast to Coast, who are they, Paul?
Well, these were a film company that took forever to try and get off the ground and never managed. It went through various names, didn't it? But the final name was at Last of the Time Lords. Heard that one before? Yeah. There we are. Yeah. Which is an interesting poster. It looks quite intriguing. But as far as I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, but they hadn't actually, it said in there they had all the funding, but they didn't. They actually bought the rights, didn't they, from the BBC to produce it, but hadn't had the funding at that point and went through various stages of scripts. And didn't Johnny Byrne write one of the scripts?
He did.
At one point?
Yeah. I mean, this is for those of you who weren't around at the time, this was actually quite exciting. But this was the start of us all starting to take things with a pinch of salt.
A ton of salt, definitely.
Salt, 1989 was the year that Coast to Coast, which was a production company at the time, had acquired the rights to a Doctor Who movie. They were looking at a massive big budget for its time. They were looking at a glossy effect, state-of-the-art effects, all the usual stuff we're used to hearing about, basically. And that cover I've just shown you is actually the cover of a magazine that was around at the time called Moving Pictures International. That was what they were going with. And as you can see, there also says a Greenlight production, which I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Coast to Coast morphed into Greenlight Productions. I'm not quite sure about that, but Last of the Time Lords, Doctor Who, the movie. So that was the look, that logo they were sort of using there, that board, if you like. That's the one they were going out with everybody to potential business partners to say, we're going to do a film about Doctor Who, a big movie. Will you invest in us? And obviously, it didn't get anywhere. It's such a shame, really, because the fan base were, well, we were coming to terms with the fact there was not going to be a series in 1990. Nobody knew what else was going on because the BBC were not saying anything at all. We were hearing on the grapevine that John Nathan Turner had gone with half the office. He'd left the office. Andrew Cartmel had gone on to Casualty by this point. We all knew that he was moving to Casualty. Yeah. Sylvester and Sophie had made it clear, we're out of contract now. We're not coming back next year. And we don't know what's happening. And then you got this film, didn't you, Paul? And we all sort of perked up a bit. And we all started saying, oh, Sylvester has to be in it and Sophie has to be in it, which was never going to happen, by the way. That was never going to happen. But as fans, we were all speaking canon. But then suddenly, this sort of, in 1990, this went quiet as well, didn't it, really? But it was an exciting time for a little while back in 89.
It was, because we thought, oh, great, a movie, that would be really good. And then eventually it became, who's going to play the Doctor? We had Donald Sutherland, we have Paul Daniels, all these things came out all over that kind of time period. And I think there's a book called The Nth Doctor. It's like a what-if book about TV or Doctor Who potential scripts. And it has a few of the ideas of it in there. And some of them sound appalling. But it's worth reading just for sort of what may have been kind of thing. And it's fascinating what could have been. But I think there was talk about various actors. I think John Cleese is going to be one draft of the film at one point. Not as the Doctor, but as another character. Like that.
There were so many names, though, Paul. I even remember one version where Michael prayed because of his massive success in Robin of Sherwood at the time, and because he left the role after his second series to go to Dynasty, he was associated with the role of the Doctor because, again, he was one of the big heartthrob flavors of the time. Again, another example of who's made it at the time, who's big at the time, always associated with Doctor Who. Funky is actually reminding us, he's saying what you just said. There's a book called The Nth Doctor that goes a load into all the failed movie attempts, but apparently very controversial too. And you'll see why it's controversial if you stay with us. Lots coming up in this semi-regular series of the Wilderness Years for you, because there's a hell of a lot to talk about through those 15 years, and a lot of us were there, remember it, so we can talk with authority, unlike some people.
There's one actor that really made me smile. I think Pierce Brosnan at one point was in the frame to play the Doctor as well, and that was mentioned in one of the Nth Doctor plot lines, which is interesting because I think he hadn't done James Bond at that point. So that
he was doing the other thing.
What
was the other thing called Who Viewers? The sort of
Remington Steele, wasn't it?
Remington Steele. I used to quite like that.
And Tom was in an episode of that as well.
He was. I remember that. It was a Saturday night that they used to show Remington Steele on the BBC here, and it was just that I was still sort of, I think, too young to start going out every Saturday night. You know,
every other Saturday night then,
and but it was always on when you would get home from wherever you were anyway, because it was on about around 9, 10 o'clock. I used to love Remington Steele. It was really fun.
Yeah.
Can we say, Paul, hello to Scotsman in NY. Good to see you. How are you?
Hello, Scotsman NY. Hello.
I was thinking about you the other day, and after everything that's gone on recently in New York, and I was thinking, oh, I hope Scotsman in New York's all right, and I hope he's okay, and I hope you haven't been waking up at about 5 o'clock in the morning recently. So I've read about it. But yeah, hi lads. Hiya. Justin from work over here. I had long stopped watching by this point, but watched a couple on PBS on my cousin's recommendation. It's great to get Doctor Who monthly during the wilderness years. It was a lifeline for us all, wasn't it, through those 15 years? And of course, it mutated and it became very much its own thing when they eventually realized there's no new series here. But this is just the start of all that wilderness years and that side of stuff for them, as they carried on through their own problems, never mind the show not being on air. But it's great to see you, Scotsman. Hope you are well. Hope you're well.
Do you remember with the Doctor Who magazine, JT, that they used to obviously run the current Doctor, and then after a while, when they realised McCoy wasn't coming back, they started playing about with different incarnations and things like that, just to make it varied, which McCoy would have been the Doctor in the magazine for like 8 years or something, wouldn't he? Or 10 years or something like
that. Yeah. And of course it was, I remember Gary Russell was the editor at the time, justifying it by saying, well, it's called Doctor Who magazine and there's 7 of them.
Yeah.
At that point. So it could be any version. It sort of made sense.
It did, but because the way the books went as well, it made perfect sense, I suppose, really. But yeah.
I see. Now, I didn't like it. We're getting off the point from 1989. I didn't like it when they started tying in with the New Adventures, but we'll get to that on another show.
Yeah.
I was really annoyed about that. Woodhouse 122 saying, wasn't Dudley Moore rumored for the movie? Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that one. Yeah, I removed that one. And Matt saying to us, hey, JT, you must have heard about the Michael Jackson Doctor Who movie. That could have happened. I also believe that at one point Bill Cosby was being considered for the Doctor. Yeah, these are rumors that I had.
Yeah, we dodged the bullet there, I have to say.
Yeah, I don't know. I do remember these rumors being around. And I remember dismissing the Bill Cosby thing immediately because I thought, you're not having an American Doctor.
Yeah,
there's no way you're having an American Doctor, and the BBC would never allow that, which has been proven since. But again, he was big at the time, and therefore associated with Doctor Who. Goodness me, thank God that didn't happen with Ezra Goldstein, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Hello. Rory's saying to us he's got that Remington episode on DVD. Well, on with Tom in, have you? Do you know I've never even thought of going to look to see if they're on DVD or anything like that. I'm going to have to look it up now, Rory.
Oh, there must be, yeah.
Well, I've never even considered it, Paul. They were just there, just something I watched on the Saturday. I bet it's awful.
You're gonna go and purchase the whole series, aren't you? After we finish, aren't you?
Yeah. And the PVFS is with us saying I love Remington Steele as well. Hello, PVFS. We're talking about 1989, everybody here, the beginning of the wilderness years for Doctor Who. Darren Zone is saying to us there were wild film rumors in the 90s. Donald Sutherland was linked with the movie project with possible companions by the likes of Caroline Munro and Madonna. The Madonna one as well, I just dismissed that immediately. I do remember that. But Caroline Munro has gone on record as saying she was linked with this particular project, this particular film. And she was there all the way from 1989 to whenever it didn't happen, when it was closed down.
Well, she already made a Doctor movie. It's called At the Earth's Core, isn't it? So there we are.
Yes. It's good to see you all. Thank you very much for all your chats. They've gone off now. We've gotten off talking about Remington Steele.
And he's not been here to go off on a tangent. Yeah.
No. Let's get back to 1989. So we've got that. So that was that. But do you know what? Oh, I'm going to show you this. This is from a Scottish newspaper called the Daily Record, and this is what cemented it for me. BBC bosses axe Doctor Who and Sophie, it says in this particular one, from late 1989. They've liquidated the Daleks and frozen out the Cybermen, but Doctor Who and Action Girl Ace are heading for extermination, beaten into the ground by Coronation Street. Brave BBC bosses, brave bosses of the Beeb, brave bosses, pitted the strength of the Good Doctor against the Northern invaders in a midweek slot. It was a massive ratings disaster. Doctor Who struggled to reach paltry ratings of 5 million viewers. Now Scots-born Sylvester McCoy, the 7th actor to play the legendary Doc, and co-star Sophie Aldred have been axed. They've been told their contract options have been withdrawn for what would have been a record-breaking 27th series. Now the BBC are considering bids from independent TV producers who want to breathe new life into the ancient time traveller. But there'll be no room in the TARDIS for Sylvester from Dunoon and Sophie. Said the BBC Insider, the odds are firmly against Sylvester and Sophie continuing in their roles. If the show is eventually made for us by an independent, they'll be wanting their own stars in the parts. Last night, Sophie's London agent said, it's true, Sophie's option for the next series has been withdrawn. And the spokesman for Sylvester confirmed it's a similar case here, but we can't comment in detail. Frontrunner among the independents to produce a new series, but not this year, are Cybermen creator Jerry Davis and Terry Nation, the man who dreamed up the Daleks, backed by money from a US film company or film companies. Now, that was the other big rumor I remember at the time, Paul. You know, the whole thing about Jerry Davis, Terry Nation had teamed up because they were very disappointed with the look of Doctor Who in the late 80s and they wanted to do a version. They had American money behind it. Cinema Verity, again, Verity Lambert came along. She wasn't happy with the look of Doctor Who, as she went on record years later to say, and she was trying to do it. But the big news there was that was the first bit of confirmation I had seen. Doctor Who is not coming back. This was around about December 1989, and it wasn't coming back.
I think I remember that Daily Record edition, actually, I can't think about it, and it did give that confirmation. But the stuff about Jerry Davis and Terry Nation and Cinema Verity and all that kind of stuff, and that never happened. That was all just speculation, wasn't it? It wasn't really, they never really had the money to do it, otherwise it would have been done, surely, you know?
I think, again, as the papers do, and again, I think it comes from fan circles, even then without the internet, everybody, don't forget, no internet. Fans had a great way of being in the industry or knowing somebody in the industry. And I think somebody somewhere possibly had seen Jerry Davis or Terry Nation because they were around then. And said something, and it might have been taken out of context. Oh, we could do that, or we would love to do that, or something like that. But it made its way into the fan circles in the United Kingdom. And I remember thinking, well, I didn't know that they knew each other, or I suppose they would have done. But I remember thinking, that's all I remember thinking at the time. Jerry Davis knows Terry Nation. What? But I remember some fans at the time, Paul, getting excited about a Cyberman and Dalek team up against the Doctor. You know?
At least people like Verity Lambert and Terry Nation, they're business people. They know what they're doing with it. And if they did do it, they'd have probably done a bloody good job producing it and knew where to take it. Because, certainly Verity Lambert would have made a great job of it. If you look at all the other stuff that she did after Doctor Who, it's amazing output of work that she did. Fantastic stuff.
I'm gonna name drop here. You may have heard me say this story before, but I'm very proud of it, so I'm quite happy to tell it again. I was at a Doctor Who convention once, and I was having breakfast at a hotel in London, and I was sitting at a table on my own. It was quite early. It must have been about 8:30, 9 o'clock. That's early in convention times, really. A couple of friends of mine were still in bed, so I was hungry. I'd gone down, set a table, and as I'm reading a paper, the old days, I'm reading this newspaper the hotel had provided, a lovely voice said, "Do you mind if we sit with you?" And it was Verity Lambert and Carol Ann Ford. And I said, no. Blah, 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 blah. I said, I'd be delighted to be honoured. And we had a lovely breakfast together. And I actually said to Verity, see all those rumours a few years back about Cinema Verity wanting to do Doctor Who? Were they true? And she said, yes. Oh. She said, yes, we were interested at the time. I was very disheartened. I can't remember the exact words, but she was very disheartened. I remember the word disheartened about how Doctor Who looked in the late 80s, how it was being received in the late 80s. She said that she didn't think anybody was looking after it properly. And by that, I think she meant the BBC as well as John. Mm. And she basically said to me that they had been interested and she would have made sure it had a good budget, a good production team, good effects and good stories. Because I was just, Carol Ann Ford was very interested in this. I remember her, being interested, but I just thought we've been robbed. And that happens an awful lot to us Doctor Who fans, doesn't it, Who viewers? Oh my God, because, she was just so businesslike, as you say, Paul. She was, yes, it was true. We would have done it. And I got the impression that it would have been a bloody good job as well.
I think the BBC was stupid not to let her do it, but they were trying to resist any form of reproduction, weren't they, of the series, because they wanted nothing to do with it, did they?
Yeah, but do you also remember, Paul, who viewers, even at this stage in 1989, there were certain mutterings about a certain American.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's where the movie side of stuff came in as well, wasn't it? And a certain American director, again, huge name, so therefore associated with Doctor Who. More of that story to come in another episode. Okay, so we got to the point in 1989. Thanks for that. I'm sure there were other newspapers that covered it. I don't remember seeing them. I just remember that one in the Daily Record, which confirmed that, we now know that Jonathan Powell, who was, of course, the controller of BBC One at the time, there he was back in the day. And there he is fairly recently. There he was very recently there. So that's Jonathan Powell.
The one on the left, GT, looks like it's Smashing Nicey that Harry Enfield did a little bit. Yeah.
Very 80s.
Yeah,
very 80s that is from 1987, apparently there. Okay, so there you go. And, of course, Mr. Peter Krigine, as we all know now. So these, effectively, are the gentlemen that actually took it off. Now, Peter Krigine was in charge of all this sort of stuff, wasn't he, Paul? He was in the Endgame documentary that you and all the others that have watched as well on the Blu-rays for Survival.
Yeah.
He is there. He's very muted about it, and he insists that yes, Doctor Who had to come off the air, but he insists he didn't envisage it going off for 15 years because, of course, Mr. Krigine left the BBC typically a year or two after that decision to take Doctor Who was off the air. He went. So nobody else, whoever took over, it wouldn't be there even to consider.
Well, that's right. And he is very sheepish in that documentary. Yeah. But I'm sure you've got the quote handy of what he said that he tantalized us with in terms of, when it's coming back and about being as strong in the 90s or whatever as it was in the 80s kind of thing, And it's just all flannel, isn't it? And it all rings very familiar, doesn't it, really? Again, deja vu again,
And again, the quote that Paul's just referred to, you blink and you miss it. Now, I only found it because, of course, I was, being the fan I was at the time, trying to log as much as I could for my own personal collection. And thank God I did, because I can use it through these episodes now. I was looking through the Radio Times on a weekly basis to see what the letters were like. Now, the letters in Radio Times in 1989 about the Doctor Who Series 26 that was being broadcast or had just been broadcast were actually quite complimentary. It was the first time I'd actually seen in quite a while people liking the show. Now, of course, I'm sure these were all fans going in, but you just can't tell. Some of them may have been not wheeze, but they was complimentary about the show. Now, that was good in the Radio Times letters page, because in those days, those pages were read by the public. And then these were in. Now, this is actually after, of course, the season had broadcast Doctor Who: The Future, the current Doctor Who adventures, with The Curse of Fenric. So that's the one that this gentleman here, D.I. Wheeler, was talking about. He'd written in when The Curse of Fenric was on, saying it was very, very good. We've got Alan Dobby here. We want who? I hope that Jonathan Powell gets the sack as soon as possible as controller. His decision to axe Doctor Who at the end of its present series shows that he doesn't understand what people really want. We want Doctor Who to continue. And
that one's definitely a fan, that one.
Definitely fan. Alan Dobby in London, I hope you're well. And then Simon Allen, who is in Harrogate. Yes, very posh. Harrogate in North Yorkshire said, I'm sure most people are aware that Doctor Who is in its final year. More than likely, it will be axed before or during December. After 26 years, the time travels on television will be frozen within a time warp. Does the BBC actually care, though? I do. In fact, I feel very bitter at the BBC's dismissive attitude towards the programme. It receives a relatively small budget. It is placed against Coronation Street on a Wednesday. It had little or no coverage from the Radio Times. So this is as it's all coming out now, everybody. This is the Radio Times, 25th of November to the 1st of December, 1989. The show is more or less about to come off air with Survival. And there it is there. Peter Krigine, head of series drama for BBC Television, replies, and this is the only time he ever did a quote. I would like to reassure Doctor Who devotees that there are no plans to axe Doctor Who. There may be a little longer between this series and the next than usual, but I very much hope that it will continue to be as successful in the 90s as it has been for the last 26 years. And that was it. Yeah. That's the last he said of it. And that quote, that, you know, I remember, Paul, that quote being at practically every local group meeting. It was in the Dwell's Celestial Toy Room. It was in everything except the magazine, I think. And it sort of haunted us for a little while.
Well, it did. It gave you false hope, didn't it? If he just actually said it's cancelled, it's not coming back, that would have been easier. But we all kept hoping it'll be back next year. Oh, it's not. The next again year. No, it's not. The next year, you know what I mean? So you're waiting for it to come back because it gave you that hope, which is the wrong way thing to do. It's just that it's cancelled, it's finished, you know?
Yeah. Funky was saying Krajine wasn't lying there, to be honest. No, he wasn't, but he's since gone on record in that documentary, hasn't he, Funky, that had somebody been there who wanted to do Doctor Who, or had he identified somebody in the BBC that he thought could do Doctor Who, but more likely somebody coming up to him saying, John Nathan Turner's out the picture, I want to do Doctor Who, he would have done it. Although it probably wouldn't have been on screen in 1990. You were probably looking at 1991. So they keep going and give the new producer a time to say, well, after a decade of John, how do we revamp it again? Budgets, all that sort of stuff. But he says, and he maintains, there wasn't anybody around. Woodhouse 122 saying, wasn't that similar to what the new BBC Studios boss said in that Deadline interview that we covered on our headline show on Sunday? Isn't it just, Woodhouse 122? You've noticed. Yes. It's amazing, isn't it? Deja vu, anyone?
Yeah, we've been here before, as you can see.
Yeah. Count 1970 lives. Sylvester was just settled into the role in his last season. It's such a shame. I still have his last season recorded from TV on VHS tapes. Me too. I've got them all there as well. It's good stuff, isn't it? It's good stuff. And the Jamie is saying, good news was Who was as successful in the 90s as in the previous 26 years. It made a ton of money for Worldwide and it never cost a penny to make. That's very true. That's very true. BBC Enterprises, as it was then, now BBC Studios, really suddenly realized that they could still make money on 26 years of this thing in various formats. So we were looking at VHS, eventually we were looking at CDs, cassettes, all this sort of stuff, the books.
And they're still doing it on the classic series, aren't they? Nothing from New Who really, but the classic series is still making money even to this day.
Even to this day, yeah. Funky 1463, Funky is saying to us, these days, those letters would be classed as toxic fandom. Yes, they probably would be, wouldn't they, mate? They probably would. Yeah, they probably would. And they let it slip away, says Darren Zone, quietly to avoid a 1985 hiatus stay back. Exactly. They were so aware. And it was Jonathan Powell, I believe, that had said to Peter Krajine, we can't go out full on and just say this is going to be cancelled, it's going to be axed, even though we know that Jonathan Powell did not like Doctor Who and he didn't like John Nathan Turner either, but he wasn't prepared to do anything else about it. But he told Peter Krajine, we can't announce this, we just got to let it slip away quietly because we can't go through that again. Can you imagine if they did, there would have been a second letter writing campaign, phone campaign, blah, blah, blah. And they would have had to bring it back in 1990, whether they wanted to or not. They would have had to do it again.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, Paul and I have chatted about this Who views, and we want to know what you think about this. From what we know of Jonathan Powell, he seems to be a bit of a wet fish, to be quite honest. I totally believe that had this fuss not been made, had nobody brought Doctor Who to his attention, I mean, you look at the incident where he met Colin Baker to talk about how Colin wanted to do the Doctor, and they were more interested in the cricket.
Yeah.
You know, and back in 1983, I think he would have forgotten about it if there wasn't this whole thing from 1985 onwards. I think he would have just let it go.
Yeah, I think if Michael Grade hadn't tried to tamper with it, it would have probably still continued for probably a few more years. And maybe with someone else producing it potentially, yeah.
And again, you know, I do agree with Krajine that they did need a strong producer or somebody that knew what they could do with the show and had a vision of what television, of what Doctor Who could look like in the 1990s. But I do also think, with the benefit of hindsight, Who viewers, that because they were getting certain, I mean, let's face it, television then, as we all know, was going independent all the time, thanks to Thatcher's, you know, governance. and what she wanted to do with the show business industry, the entertainment industry. That's where it all started, wasn't it? And when they suddenly started realizing, oh, some of these people can get money, I think that had a part of it. And then certainly when certain directors' names mentioned, oh, the BBC get to work with that person. Well, right, okay. Lex is with us. Hello, Lex. If they had a fourth year with McCoy, it would have led to his regeneration at the end of the fourth year in 1990. Even though it didn't happen, I wonder what his final series would have been like. Well, we do know bits about it, don't we, Paul? Because it has been confirmed that in 1989, Andrew Cartmel and Ben Aronovich had sort of stories, scenes in mind to write stories around. One story would have been called Earth Aid, which would have been written by Ben Aronovich and would have featured monsters called the Metatraxi, which is a great name. Great name for the Metatraxi. Mark Platt would have been coming back to do a story set in the late 1960s in London called Ice Time, which would have featured the Ice Warriors.
Yeah, we missed another chance to the Ice Warriors yet again. Yeah.
Yes, yet again. And we know about rain coming into it. We also know that they sort of talked about the idea of the Doctor leaving Ace on Gallifrey to shake the Time Lords up a bit and to train to become a Time Lord. That would have been interesting, but it would have shaken up the Lords a bit. How does she become a Time Lord? She's a human. Interesting. These are all ideas that they were talking about at the time that we now know about. And also there was the other one, that Sylvester's Laugh story could have involved the Seventh Doctor regenerating simply because of his machinations and driving himself mad. Yeah.
That would have been interesting to see how that would have panned out, because that's an interesting idea, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And it's an interesting way to get out of the Seventh Doctor, really, because of all his little chess pieces and all his little games and stuff, and eventually realizing he was driving himself insane. Totally different for the Doctor. So that's it. Stephen O'Neill was saying to us there, do the panel and chat know what the title of McCoy's final season would have been? I've given you a couple, but they never got anywhere. This is Cartmel and Aronovich, giving out ideas and playing with ideas while they're working on season 26.
Well, I think some of them have been adapted into audio dramas by you-know-who. Surprise. So they are available, some of them from them.
And here they are. Matt is actually saying some of these. Earth Aid, Thin Ice or Ice Time, Crime of the Century, and Elixion. Now, Elixion was actually commissioned at one point as well by John Nathan Turner. So they had to get out of that pretty quick, I'm sure. But there we go. That was good, wasn't it? Rory saying to us here, Rory Neal, Thatcher wanted rid of, she thought Labour ran the TV channels. She wasn't. It was all about the unions as well, wasn't it? She was determined to do that. And she saw broadcasting, the British broadcasting, she saw it a different way, didn't she? She didn't just see the BBC and ITV. She saw competition. She saw independence rising up and it not just being all the BBC. And that's why we're in the mess we are with the BBC today, to be honest.
The BBC particularly, though, if you look at, again, more documentaries about 70s Doctor Who and various strikes like the play school clock and all that kind of stuff, it was very rigid, wasn't it, with the union? Yeah. So it was quite a closed shop a little bit, wasn't it, some places?
Yeah. But all this was speculated. Nothing was down. Nothing was written down properly. It was all because they were working on season 26 and they had to do various ideas. This was Cartmel and Aronovich. It didn't go any further than that. Lex, thanks for your super chat. Who would be the Doctor after McCoy Doctor if they'd made Series 4 happen? Well, there was no producer in tow, but John Nathan Turner did say he wanted, who was it for?
Richard Griffith, yeah.
Again, he was a big name at the time because he was doing that pie in the sky thing.
Who's Harry Potter's uncle, obviously. There you are, in case you weren't.
And he would have gone, had John stayed, he would have gone for somebody completely different to Sylvester. And Richard Griffiths was completely different to Sylvester. He would have done a completely Doctor as well.
I met him once during the Edinburgh Festival, and he's a gigantic man, massive, both height and that way as well. Huge guy, lovely guy, but huge, lovely actor too. Yeah,
he was a nice actor, wasn't he?
Yeah,
and he was
and with Dale and I as well, with Paul McGann and Richard E. Grant. There you are, fantastic film.
Yeah, but it was popular at the time with the British public because of all those things.
Yeah, but Pie in the Sky was the other thing, wasn't it? You said Pie in the Sky.
Yeah. But we'll never know because it didn't go ahead. So we know that. Now, there was something else that was going on in 1989 which kept Doctor Who fans happy for a little while, and that was the play. The play. There was a stage play, everybody, called Doctor Who: The Ultimate Adventure. Now, this has gone down as, in Doctor Who fan history, really, hasn't it now? So this ran in 1989. It starred, firstly, for the first 6 months, Jon Pertwee as the third Doctor, and for the final few months, Colin Baker returned to the role of the Doctor for the first time since his axing in 1986, as of course the sixth Doctor, and there was a lot of press around it. We had this from Doctor Who magazine back in April 1989, who went to town with this, Paul. Look at that. Who's on stage? Who's on stage? They really did go to town. This was really exciting at the time as well. So this was part of something that they normally did, which was all about, tying it in with the news about who's who and who's where. And this must have been a gift for them as well, because it says the new Doctor Who Theatre spectacular, Doctor Who: The Ultimate Adventure, opens at the Wimbledon Theatre on Thursday, March the 23rd, 1989, with a script by Terence Dicks and the Doctor played by Jon Pertwee. Pertwee will play the Doctor with the same wit and sparkle that he brought to the character in the 70s, according to the play's producer, Mark Furness. The Doctor will have two companions who will be accompanying him on his travels, helping him cope with modern life. Two other creators are being created in a Suffolk workshop. These are dog-like beings to be played by the actors, and some of the Doctor's more familiar TV adversaries will also be in evidence. And then it goes on to tell you a little bit about, the special effects there. It reminds you that the last Doctor on stage was Trevor Martin in the 1974 play Doctor Who and Doctor and the Daleks: 7 Keys to Doomsday. The special effects will be provided by Foys of Las Vegas, who created the demonstrations of spacewalking for NASA. More recently, the company have worked on the Disney on Ice show and Peter Pan, which has also played the Wimbledon. Live music will be provided by Steve Eddis, and the play will be directed by Carol Todd, also a choreographer who has recently returned from a run of Starlight Express in Australia. The play went into rehearsal on February the 27th, 1989, and the team involved includes 16 cast members, 2 live musicians, and plenty of technicians, making sure everything runs smoothly, operating lights, sound, and special effects equipment, which include lasers and back projections. Exciting stuff.
Well, I remember this vividly because I saw it 4 times. Once with Jon Pertwee in Glasgow at the King's Theatre, and it was brilliant. When Pertwee came on, he got a massive cheer and round of applause as he appeared at the TARDIS. Brilliant stuff. And I really enjoyed it. It was Doctor Who does pantomime, really, but I really enjoyed it. And some of the music was great. Some of the songs were quite good. I remember one, was it Business is Business?
Business,
the woman who ran the kind of the bar, the alien bar, which was quite fun. I loved it, but it's interesting. This is the first time they had an out of Doctor, wasn't it? Appearing in something, because that was very unusual. I think McCoy was going to do it, but he couldn't because of the filming the series, wasn't
filming
it?
the series, because this was going in. This went into rehearsal. We say there in February. It was out on the road for the summer. I remember it being a big summer show, and it was so wonderful to hear about this. You would hear about, Doctor Who's in such and such a place. There was no way McCoy could have done it, and of course, John Nathan Turner had been consulted, and I think he must have broken his own rule to say yes, you're going to have one of the previous Doctors, and it was Pertwee that really piped up first to say, I want to do this. So he got it, but he only wanted to do 6 months. How many of you in the chat remember The Ultimate Adventure? Gavin Graham saying Adrian Wrigglesford amongst the reporters there. Yes, on Doctor Who magazine at the time. Yeah, absolutely. Sad to say, says Woodhouse 122, I never showed The Ultimate Adventure. I never saw The Ultimate Adventure, but I saw a dodgy video recording of the show a few years ago. You can actually get it on the tube.
You can. It's great to see it. It really is. It's wonderful.
It is. It takes you right back if you were there. Farsight is writing that David Banks was also in it as the cyber leader. Of course he was.
And he played the Doctor when Pertwee was ill, when he understudying the Doctor at one point, wasn't he?
He did, yeah, and that awful costume they gave him. And Count 1970 Live saw it with Pertwee and Baker both. I still have the signed poster, only by Banks though, because Pertwee wouldn't stop for autographs. Oh, really? It's not like gone. Oh, interesting. Yes, Jamie is saying, don't forget the cream piece Doctor, David Banks. He did look like that. I remember that, Jamie, but a lot of people going, looks like somebody from Greenpeace. Darren Reed wanted to know, was John wearing eyeliner in that picture? Yes. Yes, he was. I'll show you again. Hang on a sec. I'll show you again because he was very made up for the theatre, probably because he was due on stage.
Yeah. Colin's not wearing the costume he actually wore in the end. It's a different TV costume, isn't it? Yeah. So
no, I've shown a colour one before, but I forgot to load it. But I have got this one.
Yeah.
So that's the TARDIS prop from the show, which was
that's a terrible police box. It really is awful. I know it's a practical one because it's moving on off stage, but it's not a very good prop, is it?
And it had to fold as well.
I
think it was cardboard or something really, really thin.
Oh, really? Really? Right.
Yeah. But Colin's costume in The Ultimate Adventure, as I'm sure you all know now, is beautiful. It was much better than the one they had in the TV show. Yeah. Absolutely gorgeous and suited his Doctor to the ground. It was lovely. It was toned down an awful lot, and it got the Colin Baker seal approval as well. Absolutely gorgeous. Doctor Who magazine in that particular April edition also did a competition, everyone. You could actually have won tickets to the show. Woo! Look at that. We've got 2 tickets to give away for one of the performances at Wimbledon, simply by answering the following 3 questions. Get these, everybody. Name the stage play featuring the Daleks that was written by Terry Nation. Name the actor who played the Doctor in the play 7 Keys to Doomsday. Which is the one. And name the title of the proposed Doctor Who play written by John Ostrander. And then you had to send in your postcards. Oh, happy days, everybody. Answers on a postcard, only 2. Look at that when they were in London. Happy days. And I hope the winners enjoyed the show. I'm sure they did. Doctor Who, The Ultimate Adventure did get some press, everybody, especially around a certain young lady. Becky joins the Doc's waiting list. Scream the Daily Record in April 1989. Anyone can see that pretty Rebecca Thornhill, you wouldn't get away with this today, is a picture of health. But the 19-year-old actress is going to be seeing a lot of the Doctor over the next few weeks. For Rebecca sets out in Aberdeen today on a time-traveling stage tour of Britain with Doctor Who. I've always been a big fan, Rebecca said, but I used to watch it from behind the armchair. Oh, bless her. You've got some of these as well. Curtain goes up for You Know Who, again from the Daily Record on April the 4th, 1989. The stage was set last night for a new Doctor Who adventure. Only this time, John Pertwee and the rest of the team came firmly down to earth. Helped by his attractive assistant Rebecca Thornhill and handsome Graham Smith, Doctor Who took to the stage last night at His Majesty's Theatre in Aberdeen. And the Doctor was up against his old enemies, the Daleks, who plot to take over the world. The Ultimate Adventure uses lasers and flying effects to thrill the audience. But despite constant threats to exterminate him, John and his helpers are guaranteed to survive, at least until the show finishes its run on Saturday. It was a huge success, though, The Ultimate Adventure.
Well, it was when Pertwee did it, and I don't. I'm not going to diss Colin Baker, but was that the Sun or something like that? A tabloid
record, Daily Record.
Daily Record. Okay, yeah. And it's got that tone to it, that kind of tabloidy type thing, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, it did really well. Certainly, I think Pertwee sold out. I saw Colin Baker at the Playhouse in Edinburgh, and it's a massive venue. That I think it was the wrong venue for it, to be honest. But it was really sparsely sold at that particular venue, sadly.
Oh, I loved it. I remember at the time they were all going on about this thing about being state of the art, and there was going to be lasers and flying effects and the back projections. And when you got there, I wasn't disappointed, put it that way. But looking at it now, it was very, very primitive. But it would have been setting up where we are today, wouldn't it? Because Doctor Who: The Ultimate Adventure was one of the first, if not the first, to have special effects of that caliber on stage. Yeah.
But they also had to accommodate the fact it was touring round as well. So they had to work out doing stuff because it didn't much of a set, did it? To be honest, it was very sparse of a set. Yeah. So they had to work out how they can do this in order to make it tour round as well, make it practical, didn't they? So
Darren, it was basically black backdrops, wasn't it? Really,
black drapes. Yeah.
Had it just been in London, they would have gone for the full thing, wouldn't they? Because of the touring. And I'm glad it didn't, because I got to see it a couple of times. But the one I remember is Pertwee at Liverpool, because he was on fine form. He was really on. But being Pertwee and being the showman he was, there was the odd wink to the audience as well. Do you know what I mean? Because we were all fans.
Yeah.
And everybody was loving it. And he was loving being adored, as Pertwee did. I saw John Pertwee in the show at Bristol, says the Darren Zone. Needless to say, he owned it. Yeah, he did. We've also got the PVFS saying, so jealous of you guys over there. Yeah, what are the advantages of being in Britain? Yes, I remember that, says Care Avon. Lex is saying, I've heard of it. I never got to see it. Wish I had seen it with both doctors. Yeah, it went down really well. There are some pictures, Lex, of John and Rebecca and Graham waiting for a bus in Liverpool.
Yeah.
Outside the theatre.
Crystal and Jason. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
Crystal and Jason.
Yeah.
But you know, John's like this, you know, with the thumb out like that, waiting for a bus.
Yeah.
You know, they're wonderful, lovely pictures. Bill Lowry is saying to us, I've got a tape with both performances off eBay. The quality was so poor, I demanded my money back. I also sent a copy of the stage version of Web of Fear. Web of Fear? Ooh. Darren Reed was saying, was Banks excellent? Well, he was playing the cyber leader, so yes, he was.
Yeah.
No,
he wasn't. He wasn't. He was playing Carl, the mercenary, wasn't he?
Oh, no, sorry, that's right. Yeah, he was playing Carl. But didn't he do the voice
Yeah.
for the cyber leader?
I think, was that not done by the actor who was actually the Cyberman? I think he did it live.
Remember
didn't
that
he?
much. I'll have to go and look at it
Right.
again. But yeah, he was
Right.
playing. He was in this really sort of fetish gear, wasn't he?
Yeah, because I think that's why he put the part. I remember reading somewhere he was going to do the show, but they offered him the cyber leader, and he didn't want to do that. And I think he got the better character because he made a fuss about it. I think, yeah. So,
Yeah. I don't know. I could sworn he did the voice as well. I can't remember. Problem
he may have
being,
done it.
I was at the opening performance at Wimbledon and met Pertwee backstage. Oh, how lovely. Lovely. Kerry Owen saying to us, yes, I remember the play in 89-90. My boarding school wouldn't let me go to see it and forced me to go and see West Side Story. I'm still not over it. The younger pupils who did see it didn't appreciate it. He's saying still not over it to this day. Well, you wouldn't be. It's such a shame because it was a one-off. It really was a one-off, but it was important because it was happening in 1989. And it did help to bring Doctor Who back to the public in Britain, didn't it, Paul? Because there was so much hype, and Pertwee was up for it. He went. He did everything. He was everywhere, doing so much photos.
Well, it was on Wogan, wasn't it? At one point, promoting it. I remember.
Yeah. And it was just amazing. It really was. But it was It was a culture shock as well because it was a sort of musical as well. Thank God Pertwee and Colin didn't have to sing. Yeah, to be honest. But it was
very pantomimey, wasn't it? Let's be honest, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, problem being saying to us here, I lived down the road from Wimbledon Theatre, and when the show ended, the dilapidated TARDIS prop was left out the back, and I was so nearly tempted to drag it home. But it was a state, and I lost my nerve. I bet somebody did, though, PB.
I bet, yeah.
I tell you there is, I bet there is. Isn't there a short story set after The Ultimate Adventures? This funky? I don't know. I don't go into all the stuff. There's too much of it out there. That's probably sequels, not from
probably,
Gavin Graham saying Birmingham was packed when I saw John and David, as it happened, whilst Colin at Northampton was probably 3/4 capacity.
Yeah.
Aaron Zone saying, wasn't there Kylie and Jason rumors about the show around at that time? Yes, there were. Do you remember those rumors, Paul?
I do as well, yeah. I think that's probably why the character's called Jason, to be honest.
Possibly. Kylie Minogue and Jason Donovan, of course, massive in 1989. They were having #1 hits for crying out loud here in our hit parade.
Yeah.
I didn't like it at the time. But
also appearing in Neighbours at the same time as well, weren't they?
Neighbours was huge. And of course, they were working and living here and having huge hits and stuff. And they were doing pantos and stuff. Oh, Jason certainly went in there. So yes, they were associated with The Ultimate Adventure. Kylie eventually, of course, turned up in Doctor Who years later, didn't she? Jason hasn't managed it yet. You never know. One day he might. Thanks for that, Darren. And Count 1970 saying to us, I do have a full-size TARDIS front set of doors from a stage play, who knows what one. I am going to install them here on a walk-in wardrobe I have soon. Oh, how fantastic. I need a picture. Count 1970.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Send us a picture. whosviews1@gmail.com. Send us a picture for that. You know the email. Jamie, only time I saw the Doctor on stage was a school trip to Jack and the Beanstalk. I didn't realize until a few years later that it was McCoy pre-Who. Oh, there you are.
Talking of McCoy, I remember reading somewhere, I don't know if it's a true story, but apparently after the run ended with Colin, there was talk about doing an Australian tour with the Lower Low, who did their own stage production, and they're going to take an Ultimate Adventure with McCoy in the part for the stage production and a Low to Australia. I don't know if you heard that story at all. Have you heard that?
That rings a bell. That does ring a bell. Yeah, for the year after, wasn't it, when McCoy was free?
And it never happened. Yeah,
never happened.
Yeah.
That does ring a bell. Good for you. I'll send you a picture when done, JT. No problem. Thank you, Camp 1970. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. But yeah, but that was something that was a light for Doctor Who fans in 1989. For a year, that was actually, let's face it, quite confusing. We'd had an awful lot going on, but not necessarily in the order we wanted it to go in, really.
Can I sing Colin's praises before we move on? Because Colin was brilliant in the stage show as well. He really... I'm really glad he came back. I know it was a job and he loved doing Doctor Who, but I'm glad he came back to have another crack at it because he was brilliant. He really was.
Yeah. And by this point as well, 1989, just a few short years, it sort of, because we all expected Colin never to come back to Doctor Who at all, but here he was being mature and being, just great and thinking, oh, of course I'll do that. Because he was around, of course, at the time on the stage, having another successful career on stage, wasn't he? He was doing all sorts of things, So to do Doctor Who in his schedule as well, wonderful. So yeah, that was great. So good for Colin. And it was the reaction from the fans to the Ultimate Adventure with Colin, of course, that brought him back eventually into the conventions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was 1989, everybody, the start of the Wilderness Years, because by goodness, by January 1990, we knew that the Doctor wasn't coming back anytime soon. Stay with us, everybody, as we continue with our Wilderness Years stories. It's a semi-regular series. You have to subscribe, of course. You have to make sure you're still subscribed and you have to ring that bell. But keep tabs on our show page for all the shows we're going to be doing, because the next episode will be coming your way at some point. We've got lots planned for this series. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you for joining it. Paul, I hope you've enjoyed that.
I've loved that. That was fantastic. Thank you so much for getting me on this. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. Yeah.
There's a lot to talk about through 15 years of the show being off air. We've only just started. There is a lot to come with this, and we are going to be deep diving, not just by year, but into other elements of the Wilderness Year. We're going to be looking at fanzines. We're going to be looking at the DVDs and video range. We're going to be looking at the new adventures, the missing adventures. There is lots to come with us. We've got lots to talk about. So make sure you stay with us. From Paul and myself, we hope you've enjoyed the show. Give us a comment. Let us know about what you think about the series. And of course, email anything that you think we might be able to use during our Wilderness Years series, including any conventions you went to, any of the cast you met, any of the production team you met, any newspaper clippings you might have. And then when we do the live shows, of course, come and join us with all your memories. From Paul and myself, until we see it again on Who's Views, which will be very shortly, look after yourselves, everyone. Ta-ra.
Good, everyone. Bye-bye.
See ya.